Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Monday, November 1st Ashland Rally. Doesn't have to be muted. Thank you. Until he gets done wrestling. Good morning. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Monday, November 1st City Council meeting for the City of Bel Air Beach, Florida. We now normally do the Pledge of Allegiance, but before we do the Pledge of Allegiance today, our city does not have a special service on Veterans Day, which is November 11th. And I always like to honor the brave men and women who have served our country. Veterans Day is your day. It's the day that we show some appreciation for the sacrifice that you made in serving this country. So I'm going to ask, if you are a veteran, if you would please stand up. Stand up, but Glenn Gunn, I know, is a veteran of the Coast Guard. Stay standing, and here's what I want to do. Normally I lead the Pledge of Allegiance. Veterans, nice and loud and proud, you can lead that Pledge of Allegiance for us, okay?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All veterans of our city, your families, all people in this country, thank you. Thank you from this city, thank you from me, thank you from all of us. It's not said enough. We wouldn't be able to do what we're doing if you didn't do what you did. So thanks again. All right. Madam Clerk, if you would please, the call roll.
Councilmember Frank Bankert.
Present.
Councilmember Glenn Gunn.
I'm here.
Councilmember Leslie Notero.
Here.
Councilmember Rita Swope.
Here.
Vice Mayor Dave Gaddis.
Here.
Mayor Joseph Manzo.
Here.
City Manager Lynn Reeves.
Here.
City Attorney Fred Riley.
Here.
And Councilmember Robin Aki hasn't arrived yet.
Okay, and let the record reflect that Glenn Gunn is on a telephone hookup. We have 5 people present, so we have a quorum and we will proceed. First item of business is the approval of the agenda. I'll entertain a motion. Motion by Frank Bankert. Second. Second, Leslie Notero, and Dave Gaddis. Either, and any discussion? No discussion by the council. Any discussion by the citizens? Council? Take a voice vote. All in favor of approving the agenda? Aye. Anyone opposed? Passes 6-0.
Can you hear now?
Item 2 is the citizens' comments. The way we do citizens' comments, if you're new here, on any item that is not on the agenda. Okay, so if you see it listed on the agenda, there's going to come a time where I'm going to ask for citizen comments like I just did on the agenda, right? So there'll be a time when you can come up and speak about an agenda item. But if you don't see it here, if there's something else that's on your mind, you know, somebody, I don't know, put a hole in your street and you want to let the city manager know, come over and talk with us. The way we're going to do it is you come right up over here by the podium. Please announce yourself, give us your name and address, and you have 3 minutes of time. If you need up to 12 minutes, you have to get that from other people. They need to give that to you beforehand. We ask that we speak with decorum and with politeness to everyone here, and I think it should work out real well. With that said, is there anyone who would like to address the council? Yes, sir. This gentleman here.
I'm Brad Glover, 126 9th Street. So 2 things. One, I wanted to see if we have any update, and I know these are comments, and I don't know if you guys can interact, but 9th Street here, which I live, has been continually been flooded, and it seems to be, I've been here, I guess, 3 years in a row now, and still nothing gets done, and it's a high tide, it still floods. It's really a drainage issue from like 128 to 124. And so just trying to understand if there's any type of room in the budget for basic infrastructure would be awesome. And then number 2, I wanted to see if there's any update or anything around beach umbrellas on the beach. I've got 2 young kids. It really makes it a quality of life issue for us here in Bel Air Beach, not being able to have safety for my kids from a son point of view. I know you guys have talked about it a lot, but at the same time, we haven't really received a lot of updates on it from our perspective, and we're getting a little frustrated around that. So mainly just 2 comments, questions, but it is really affecting quality of life here at Bel Air Beach. So I just wanted to point that out to you guys.
Thank you. So here's what I'd like to do. With the council that's present, normally, Mr. Glover, we're not supposed to have an interaction, direct interaction. You had that part right. But I hate to say to you, because I will absolutely address the beach umbrellas thing. I'm the man on that. That's my lawsuit. I'll tell you all about it. But the other thing is the city manager, and I think you're going to like what he has to tell you. But I'd rather do that now than have you wait till the end of the night and stuff. But in order to do that, I need the council to tell us that it's okay to dispense with the rules and that we have this interaction. So with that said, does anybody have a problem if we dispense the rules and answer these questions for him now?
Any motion?
Yeah.
Motion to dispense.
Motion. Second, Dave Gaddis. Any comments? Citizens have any comments? Bring it to a vote, voice vote. All in favor of dispensing with the rules so that we can answer the citizens tonight? Aye. Anyone opposed? Passes 6-0. Let's give you your answers. First on 9th Street. Let's take care of that first. I'm going to defer this to the city manager. He's our expert on it. Lynn Reeves.
Yes, that 9th Street is in a rotation of projects. This year it's 12th and 13th and 17th and 18th. And I think, I don't have it in front of me, but if you want to call, just call City Hall and ask for me, I'll give you the year when it's done. There is a check valve on 9th Street, and so there shouldn't be high tide water coming up, but when it rains, there is water because the pipes are full.
Yeah.
And so it's on the list of projects.
Okay, no, and I can tell you, at high tide, it definitely floods, and it doesn't drain, so it's just constant standing water. And so when we try to get out and try to bike or walk down the street's completely flooded. So, and I know that we're coming into this park, and a lot more people use this park, so it'd be really great if we could accelerate 9th Street. Again, it's been 3 years, so I just want to make sure that I understand when we can get it on the list, so thank you.
Does that answer that question?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to answer your question on the beach umbrellas issue. It's not a city issue. If the city doesn't, actually it's the citizens who hold the rights to use 6th Street, 12th Street, and 19th Street beach accesses. That's why it's the citizens that have taken the step, which is my lawsuit, but there's 43 people who have joined me. So an update. Everyone in the city, I'm glad you asked this because there's no other way I would have been able to say this, okay? The beach umbrella ban is in full force. You may have gotten away with putting it up until this time, and the reason why you got away with it is because the sheriffs were unable to write you a ticket. At the last council meeting, commission meeting of the Bel Air Shore Commissioners, they passed a very heavy fine schedule. The first umbrella violation will cost you $100. Your second one will cost you $250. And your third one and thereafter for the next 5 years will cost you $500 a pop. If you decide to challenge it with their magistrate, I know you're shaking your head, I shook my head, $500 upwards of a fine for your first violation. So it could be a very expensive afternoon at the beach. That is in play right now. They passed that last time. I think the 29th was the 10-day waiting period. So if you go out there and put one up, you might get lucky and the sheriff gives you a warning. You might not. I can tell you they get to keep the revenue from this. They get to keep pretty much all the revenue, and they're looking forward to making that revenue. In terms of the lawsuit, I'm not going to tell you anything that's not public. Okay, the initial motions to dismiss failed. I won them. I defended them successfully. We finished the paper discovery. We're now going to start with the depositions. That will end the rest of the discovery, which should end by the end of February. And once that ends, then the lawyers will do the lawyer stuff because there's a bunch of issues that are constitutional issues, which are fairly complex, that are going to be briefed and possibly, depending on how the agreement between the two parties goes, may be able to be actually tried before the trial. It's scheduled for trial next July. That's as fast as justice works, okay? It's almost 2 years that we've had to wait. I am going nowhere, so I'm going to continue this. There's still time if anybody wants to intervene. You can be an intervener. If you want to do that, there's a lady here, she's wearing a red shirt. Her name is Deborah Mall. See her, okay? Do not come to me, okay?
No, I appreciate it. It's unfortunate that we just can't even use it on just the entry. Right?
It's extremely unfortunate.
Health and safety issue for the kids, for myself. I mean, it's ridiculous. So
Exactly.
I appreciate it.
Mr. Bankar, our council member Bankar has experienced it firsthand. His 3-year-old granddaughter was thrown into the hot sun, right? So,
Well, 2 weeks ago, a neighbor, well, I won't give the address, okay, knocked on my door, was talking to me about the beach umbrellas. And he has an autistic grandchild that no longer can use the beach. The cannot stay in the sun for more than 30 minutes. Now, I don't know why this council doesn't grasp a hold of this and take it to the courts. Mr. Manzo's doing it, and I applaud you for that. But that's not your job, in my opinion. It's this council, because you as a taxpayer, me as a taxpayer, it affects the property values too, okay? And I pleaded, up here, and I just can't get enough support.
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you guys so much, and thanks for letting me.
Oh, no problem.
Appreciate it.
Take care of those beautiful children.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hi, Mike Sable, 3320 Hibiscus Drive West. Yeah, I'd like to add my comments to the beach issue. First of all, it's kind of disingenuous. It's not all beaches. It's only the beaches that are within the Bel Air shores.
Correct.
So a lot of citizens, we use our beaches, draws no problem. My problem comes, why isn't the city council working? What is your excuse for not working this issue?
I will tell you, this came up, and I believe, and I could be wrong on this because I'm going straight off recollection, Mr. Zabel.
Yeah.
But Robin Aki made a motion, I don't even know that it got a second. I can't participate in it, obviously, since it's my lawsuit. Any citizen could have brought that lawsuit. And by the way, to dispel any misinformation, there's been more than a share of it put out, okay? I didn't go directly to a lawsuit. We went across the street on July 21st, 2020 in an attempt to resolve it. The city manager came, Glenn Gunn came. When I say went across, we went on Zoom. Myself and Jody Shirley, we each spoke on different things. We didn't speak on behalf of the city. Lynn Reeves did speak on behalf of the city. They rejected us. Okay, after I was told by Mayor Schmidt, who I called earlier, to get a moratorium on the thing, he said, give me a chance to work on it. And then ultimately they said, nah, we're just going to leave it in place. One of their commissioners, and I have the tape in my legal files, and it's public information for them, actually said, I'll listen to Bel Air Beach, but I'm not changing my mind. I mean, Commissioner Bloom. Okay? He had no intention of changing his mind. Yet there was this misinformation that, oh, we were close to a settlement. There was no settlement. Because I gave them 2 weeks of notice, of advance notice before the lawsuit. But I didn't go right to lawsuit. I gave them 2 weeks. That deadline would have been, I think, August 14th or so. I might be off by a day or two. I didn't bring the lawsuit to September 28th. They had a month and a half to reach out to me. Not one person picked up the phone. Not one person picked up an email. Not one person contacted this city and said, oh, wait a minute, Mr. Manzo, hold off. Okay? And then I finally pulled the trigger and said, I'm going to go for the lawsuit. And that's what's going to get these rights back. And I'm going to win this. Okay?
Well, my question is, that's your lawsuit. That's not on behalf of all the citizens.
Right, but you all benefit.
I'm asking you as mayor, why isn't the city council working this issue?
I have to recuse myself, so ask the city council. And it's
That's what I'm doing.
so I did what I could do. So
No,
city
I got
council.
it. Okay,
yeah.
you're to recuse, that's perfect.
Right. So city council.
I am pleading with council to do something about it, all right? I've asked to go to court for a temporary court injunction, couldn't get nowhere with that.
As a city, or I don't know?
As a city,
Oh,
okay? Because it affects everyone that lives, well, everyone that lives in Bel Air Beach.
cancer's on phone, yeah.
And we just can't get the support of, we can't get 4 votes here.
On this city
On the
council.
city
to move
council.
forward.
Yeah, to take it, look, I commend you, the mayor, for doing this, all right? I'm not gonna intervene with the lawsuit because I don't wanna be stifled, all right?
But then if you're not interfering, I mean, I'm asking about his lawsuit, that's,
Well, yeah, but I'm saying we should have our own lawsuit.
okay.
We should have done this before I was on council. And if you look at the tapes back in, I believe, July 2020, this entire council was on board before they went to the Bel Air Shores meeting to do something. The mayor clearly says, and if I say something wrong, correct me. The mayor clearly says we're going to give them a short notice, but we want our rights back.
Okay,
And I'm paraphrasing. but-
You're right.
any other council members?
Sure, I'll address that.
May I say something first?
Yes.
We'll say it directly as I can.
Okay.
The city council has a code provision that says the council cannot discuss prospective or pending litigation. That's,
The litigation's not brought by a member, it's brought by.
Private
the citizen.
litigation. So
See, that's why I don't understand.
could I complete my thought?
Yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
They have that as one of the rules that they have to abide by. So the status of the case is that the city did not was not a party to the lawsuit. The city has not been brought into the lawsuit, and private citizens initiated the lawsuit, and private citizens are involved in the litigation process. And up until now, the city council has not taken any action to become involved in the lawsuit, and the lawsuit is taking its course. So that's the status. I would caution the city council on discussing prospective litigation, because that's the rule. So that's my statement to the city council and giving them legal advice.
And I understand that not all attorneys are correct.
Pardon?
That's your opinion, I understand.
No, it's not my opinion. It's what the city code
So
states.
they can't discuss the pending litigation, but they can
No,
talk to,
no,
as
they,
members have had,
no,
what is their personal feelings on this issue?
they
About
can't,
getting the two cities together, they just can't, that's what I'm hearing.
they cannot discuss pending litigation that involves a city. They cannot discuss, according to the rule as it exists now, prospective litigation. I didn't make up the rule, I'm only telling you what it is.
So you paint the city council into a corner. By doing that, the city council can no longer function in support of the citizens, other citizens.
I don't necessarily disagree with you, but I'm
Okay,
telling
no, I
you
understand.
what the city code says, so.
Point of
I'll
information,
work you.
Yes, sir.
Thanks, I understand.
Wait, hang on, Mr. Hanzig, I want to have, like.
No,
when you speak into the microphone.
Yes, please, speak
Oh,
into the
I'm sorry,
mic.
yeah, no, appreciate it. No, I understand where you're coming from, thank you.
Captain Zabel, I'm going to address you because it's my lawsuit, and I'll talk about it all I want, okay? And yeah, first off, it's not prospective litigation. The city's never been threatened with coming into this lawsuit, and we were not counterclaimed by the city of the town of Bel Air Shore. Okay, so it's my private lawsuit, and anyone can join it subordinate to me as an intervener. I can object to people coming in. I'm not objecting to a single person. I will object if you're not sharing my views, which is we want our umbrellas back, but that is long more than an umbrella ordinance that I'm fighting. I'm fighting for their abuse of the parking lots. If you go there, Frank Bankard is a witness to this one. A 100-ton construction crane was parked there. They've used their parking lots as if they're their own personal parking lots. I'm fighting that. And I'll tell you what, okay? They own those lots, but they own them with a sole purpose, and the sole purpose is to keep them for the Bel Air Beach citizens living east of the center line of Gulf Boulevard, and it's for our beach and bathing purposes. They are entitled to no other use. That's my interpretation and about 6 other attorneys. And I'll tell you what, they use them as if it's theirs. And I'm out to change that. We're going to quiet that title. And what we're going to do, because they've abused their trusteeship, I'm not telling you anything that's not in the lawsuit, and I'll be happy to send you a copy of it, okay? That's public record, and I will send you that. My file, and somebody's going to ask here, they can have my litigation file, and no, you can't. But the lawsuit itself is a public record of Bel Air Shore, and I'll be more than happy to give you that. And it's also, you can get it on the city website.
Quite the title, I don't understand that.
Quiet the title means to figure out who owns this and who can do what with it.
Okay.
It says that we have the right to have beach and bathing purposes, and my interpretation is very simple. I go to every beach in the country, every beach in the world, and I've never found anybody who bans shade. It's a health issue. It's just ridiculous, okay? You need to have a reasonable basis to have a law. That's the lowest level of scrutiny. My take on this is that it's unconstitutional because in Florida, we have what's known as a right of privacy. And you're saying, look, right of privacy on a beach, you couldn't be more public. The right of privacy is your medical privacy. You have the right to make all medical determinations yourself under the Florida Constitution. I'll decide if I want to expose my skin to the sun. And this is the only time I could ever, in my life, ever think of the city taking away a protective device. The city makes you wear masks. The city makes, or the state wears you make seatbelts and helmet laws and everything else for protection, okay? And they're taking away umbrellas. That can stop skin cancer, that can stop heat stroke. This is unprecedented. And it's more than that. Because they opened up the bottle when they decided to tangle with me, okay?
Point of order.
Okay.
point of order, he's well over his 3 minutes for citizens' comments, and discussing the lawsuit is not, the city is not a part of it, it has nothing to
He
do
asked for an
with this
update on
council
it, and
meeting.
I'm gonna rule that out of order. He's not, he's getting an explanation from me, and I'm giving it to him, I'm not bound by a time limit. So,
No, appreciate it.
I'll
Thank you.
continue, okay?
No,
The lawsuit also has bicycles on the beach. Down along that wet sand, which is where anybody can ride a bicycle, and if God bless you, if you can ride it in the dry sand, okay?
I would.
And, right, but down there, there's a thing called Florida Public Trust Doctrine. That means that belongs to all the citizens and actually all the people. Okay, anyone can go and use that wet sand for recreation purposes. And you can't ride a bicycle in your city. Now, we're gonna come to later tonight and put a ban on electric bicycles. I don't wanna ride electric bicycles, but a pedaled bicycle? You know, a good old-fashioned foot-powered bicycle? Why not? That's recreation. And on top of that, why do I have to fast while I'm on the beach? That's another thing that's unconstitutional. So I'm attacking all of it. And when I get done, I take away their trusteeship, because they hold it as trustee. When they get done, there's gonna be another group hopefully there that runs those spots, and they run them properly. That's what I'm shooting for.
Okay, thank you.
Okay? Thank you, Captain. And by the way, Captain, I know you're captain in the Navy. And
Or retired, I mean, it's okay.
it's okay. I appreciate the service.
No problem,
Thank you for coming up.
Okay.
John, I saw your hand up. Any other citizens? Yes, come on up.
John Hansick, 103 22nd Street. I was unable to attend the work session, but I listened to the tapes, and I heard something in there very disturbing as a citizen and a taxpayer, and one who has taken an oath multiple times in my life. And it was related to the quote basically being, well, this is why we have liability insurance. And it went to passing rules or circumventing or disregarding established law, rules, ordinances, whatever. For the information of the citizens, our liability bond or insurance is only $1 million. So hypothetically, if somebody on the council or the council did something wrong and the citizens sued for $2.5 million and won, who do you think is responsible for the other $1.5 million? We are. That's not what we elected people to do, is to circumvent or ignore the oath of office. And I take serious offense with that. Yes, I listened to the audio tapes. Don't look at me dumbfounded. Section 9.02 is the oath of office for this city. Basically, it says you swore an oath to uphold and defend the Constitution of the United States, the state of Florida, and all laws and ordinances. You don't flagrantly disregard the law because you don't like it. I'm saying, if you can't consciously do the job that you swore an oath to, you don't belong up there. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hansick, and thank you for the service to the grant. I'm gonna make sure I get it right. Command Master Chief of the Navy, in the Navy, right?
In the Navy, not
In the
the
Navy.
Navy.
Thank you.
You're welcome,
So
sir.
be Captain Zabel back there. Maybe you guys said I think better. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Bill Booth. Hello.
Yes, you're here.
Bill Booth, 2611 Bay Shore Drive. This
No, you
is,
just cut out. You were doing good, so maybe you gotta get real super close to it. Did you hit the button maybe? Is it green?
hello?
There you go. Okay.
Bill Booth, 2611 Bay Shore. Unfortunately, this isn't my first time complaining about this, but I've had discussions with Lynn. The house next door to me has had a dumpster in his front yard for 5 months. And the last 3 months, no one has worked on the house, and I'm sick of it. I mean, we pay a lot of taxes, and there's a dumpster in our neighborhood right next to my house. And no one can figure out how to get rid of it.
Mr. Booth, you picked the right name. This is the first time that we've had our code officer at our invitation come here.
I know that.
So we're going to ask him about your situation and find out what's the situation on it.
I mean, the house has been vacant for 2 years. I believe the actual owner of the house has died. It's in court. You know, the person taking care of the place is in California and could care less what the place looks like. The dock is falling into the water, and I have to look at this every day. And everyone that goes up my street looks at it every day. And yet, a neighbor of mine was redoing a house, and he got a code violation for trying to improve his house in a matter of 2 days. And this thing has been there for 4 months, and I'm tired of people complaining without identifying themselves. Bill Booth, 2611 Bay Shore, and I have a complaint. I'd like to see the other person that complained about my neighbor trying to do better on his house and make the neighborhood nice, and ask him why. It's ridiculous. Yep. Second thing is, where are our police in the morning on Bel Air Causeway, on the Bel Air Bridge? It says 35 miles an hour. Today, I walk the bridge every day. Please say hello to me or Pete when you drive by at 60 miles an hour. I watched a car pass 2 cars today, and nothing. The police aren't around. And we could make a ton of money. We could have enough money to do more lawsuits if they just tag people for driving crazy on that road. So that's it.
Okay, Mr. Booth, hang on 1 second here. Let me give you a piece of information. I'm going to ask the police, because they're coming up next. Okay, once we finish with citizen comments, and I'm going to ask...
I'll put my hands in the handcuffs.
No, I'll ask you to share. I have 2 sheriff's officers. One sheriff's officer will give us our report on regular crime. Sheriff, I'd like you to address the speeding issue. And Danny Doherty, our code enforcement deputy, he will talk about the enforcement on the dumpster issue. Let me give you one piece of information with regarding to these anonymous complaints. That used to be a problem. In fact, it was a problem statewide because citizens used it sometimes to get even with people. And like you say, you got a good guy and he's getting busted. Thank the governor and the legislature on this one. They passed an ordinance that took a law that took effect, and now all code complaints need to be identified. So there is no more anonymity.
Who was that guy? Who was the person that turned?
No, the ones that started after they passed the law. So it's a recent thing, I believe it.
Yeah. Well, how long ago?
July?
Well, this was done after July.
Okay.
And the guy could never find an identity. So I'd like to know that gentleman's name that turned Jeff in.
Actually, it was before July 1st.
What?
It was before July 1st.
Semantics.
Any other citizens? Deborah Moore.
I'll be quick, I just have 2.
Just identify yourself. I know you are, but they don't.
115 Causeway Boulevard across the street. I have 2 concerns. Last meeting, we spoke at length, you guys spoke at length about the crane on the 12th Street access. Yet, and to Mr. Hansick's comments about the insurance, I'm totally in agreement with you on that.
Excuse me, Ms. Walt, let me interrupt you. Patty, hold the timer. Robin Aki's arrived at 6:29. Okay? Please continue.
Sorry. But when the sign was installed out front, I have pictures, I have video. No one was there supervising it, number 1. Number 2, there were only cones immediately behind the truck, not blocking the sidewalk. So all the people, they started at sunup, because I'm up running. And there was no blockage of the sidewalk, no blockage coming into the parking lot or anything. And we had just talked about the danger, and they had a big crane to put that thing in. So, to me, that's negligence. And I believe that we should be supervising things a little better with those things. My other comment is that I noticed on the agenda that we are going to give a certificate out or something for the mats, for the handicap to access the beach, and I'm all for that, believe me. But I also believe that maybe the city could do something for the beach accesses, because autism, cancer, those are all disabilities as well. So we who have those types of disabilities or autoimmune disorders or whatever need protection at the beach as well, not only access to it, but protection of it. And we have just as much right to access the beach at these street accesses as we do in our city. That's it, thank you.
Thank you. Before you go, let me see if the city manager wishes to comment with regards to the sign install, since you're here. Lynn, do you want to speak on this?
Well, I was out there, Kyle was out there, maybe not when you took your pictures. There were cones around the truck, the side, front and back. It was not blocking any sidewalk. And the sign was put in, and Kyle and I were out there, I know, 2 or 3 times.
Oh, okay, I got a camera on my house that shoots it all, but anyway, the cones were very close to the truck. There was nothing blocking off that sidewalk wall.
It didn't need to be, because the truck wasn't blocking the sidewalk.
No, not for the truck. What if something had fallen?
The crane wasn't operating
On
towards the
somebody.
sidewalk. It was operating.
I got videos. I mean, I felt when I was over there that it was a danger.
Ms. Ball? Ms. Ball? Deborah?
Yes,
Just
I'm
come
sorry.
back for a second, because I have a...
I did contact the city manager about a complaint or two about it, and I was leaving town for the day, but the day before there, what got me upset was they were welding out there with no shield around. And if you ever get welder's eye, you'll know it, about 2 a.m.
I just think we're getting sloppy on our safety.
Let me ask you this, you have video, but you don't have to, it's certainly not really a requirement. Are you able to share any of that with us and send that to us? At any point, you can send it to any one of us, or you can send it to all of us, or you can send it to Patty Gentry, she can distribute it to everyone, then it will become a public record, and then we can see what you saw, and that would be great.
Sure.
And then we can deal with this again. Anyone else? Jim Bensley.
Jim Vanskoy, 7th Street, Bel Air Beach. As far as the crane, I had to come in here to get a book out of the mailbox, and there was no spotter out there. The cones were just being placed, and they were being placed right next to the unit. I actually I have pictures as well. Okay, there was no spotter, there was no one supervising, there was a guy looking up at the crane, there was not a second party. I witnessed it all pulling into this parking lot to get that book and coming back out. And quite frankly, I was pretty intimidated having a crane up in the air, and I have a convertible. So I was very intimidated about that with no backup security system. Now, I'm not saying they weren't here at some point in time. I did not witness that, and I was not watching it all day long, so I can't speak to that. The other thing, this city passed a resolution, I believe, that they were not involved in the umbrella lawsuit against Bel Air Shore. Okay, so for the gentleman that was questioning that, the city said they passed a resolution. Now, there were some council members that voted against it, obviously, and then, of course, the mayor had to abstain from the vote on it because of this lawsuit. That's the other thing. Third thing, I want to make sure that I personally witnessed the park board putting on one heck of an event this weekend, and I personally think they did a fantastic job, and I saw so many children from the city participate, and it was very heartwarming, and I think this city needs to readdress the fact that we do have children, and we need to be their voice as a community, and start putting more money into this park out here for our children to enjoy. We want to be a premier city. We want to retain our citizens who you know, your neighbors you know. We need to step up our game and do things to make it desirable, to make them want to stay in our city. We have neighbors that have been here, grew up here, and are still here, and they're raised in the next generation. And I think that this is something that this city needs to address. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other citizens like to speak? Seeing no other hands, I'm going to close citizen comments. Next, we have the presentation of the Pinellas County Sheriff's Office. I'm going to ask that the patrol sheriff make the first presentation, and then code officer, you're going to go second. And if you just introduce us, yourself, so everyone knows who you are.
Good afternoon, Corporal Kelman, Pinellas County Sheriff's Office. These are the stats for September 2021. There were 821 events in the city. 205 of them were traffic stops. There were 9 suspicious persons, 9 voting investment stops, 6 ordinance violations, which resulted in 7 arrests for the city. There are no crashes.
Sheriff, I note that one of the things is a motor vehicle theft, and this is available to all citizens. If you sign up in the county, you get a blast from the sheriff telling you on real time. This is September, but this is telling us what happened, like last week and everything. It comes every week. Thank God, most of the times it says nothing from Bel Air Beach. But I noticed that there was another motor vehicle in our city. It just happened, I guess, last week. Is that, you know anything about that one? That won't show up till the next one, but there was another, it looked like there was another motor vehicle theft. Are we having a group of people maybe going around? I just want to alert the citizens.
Well, like I tell everyone, make sure you lock your car doors. Do not actually break into the cars. You just walk around trying car doors. And if you take your wallets, your keys out of the car, you'll be completely fine.
Yeah, and your handguns too. We've had issues with that too. Okay. Council, any questions? Great job as usual. Just, we'll make sure we pass on the word here that, keep things locked up and, because we know that's an epidemic. They just go around and lift doors. They call it lifting, I think. And, if you happen to have it unlocked, they lift all the stuff inside too. And that's not good. And the bad thing is, unfortunately, some people leave firearms, and that's great to have firearm protection, 100% Second Amendment, but don't leave it unlocked in a car. I think we had a sheriff's deputy killed a couple of years ago because of that. So,
Yeah. Big liability.
Yeah. Hang on, Sheriff, 1 second. Any questions from the council? Citizens? Yes, Mr. Booth. So Mr. Booth had the question regarding the, patrols on the bridge is the main question right now.
Correct. Like I said, out of 821 events in the city, 205, which led to the max, were the max instances in the city. So unfortunately, it only resulted in 32 traffic stops, ticket citations. But I just asked Deputy Doherty to enable a direct patrol for the bridge in the morning. Is there any particular time you wanted to have it more besides 6 a.m. to?
I walk from 7:30 to 9 o'clock, and it's unbelievable.
All right, I'll make it from 6 to 8. Sounds good.
And I see you at 4:45 every morning. You got about 2 or 3 cars, not only there, but on golf as well, because they're out there.
Correct. I know our shift, we sit at the.
Give me a radar.
I would.
Corporal, here's the other thing we can do, and we're not going to disclose the date, but Lynn Reeves knows exactly, you can tell me what I'm going to say right now, right, Lynn? Okay, so we started something not too long ago where we had special patrols. It was because I was noticing a lot of speeders on Gulf Boulevard. We were getting complaints on 22nd Street. People were coming racing, doing stuff. So we had undercover officers. We pay for this separately, but we've got some money set aside for this. Okay, it's been a long time since we've done that. Okay, and we usually try and keep it till we get to the height of the tourist season and everything. But we have a citizen who's observed it. He's out every day on the bridge. Okay, and I'll tell you a call I got one time. Okay, I got a call from a citizen the first time we did it, and it's great because I'm not going to tell you how we do it, but you'll never know it until you're pulled over. Okay, and he goes, that's really sneaky of you guys. You had you caught me coming off the bridge, and I was doing like 55, and I'm like, I'm sorry, what were you doing? 55? It's a 35. I like going fast too, but that's the wrong place to be going fast because you come right into a residential neighborhood. So we're not going to have that. So Lynn, how about it? You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
On our shift, we caught.
I'm there every morning.
Okay.
On our shift, we caught a guy doing 95 from coming across the bridge this month. he went to jail.
Good. I've seen a couple high-speed car chases up and down Gulf Boulevard, too. There was a couple nights the sheriff was in hot pursuit on a few cases, so it's wild out there, you know, so keep it up. You guys are doing a wonderful job. We appreciate it very, very much. This, ladies and gentlemen, is Danny Doherty, our Deputy Doherty, and Danny Doherty's been our code enforcement officer now for about a year and a half or so. Yes, sir.
2 years now.
So we've asked that he come here and give a monthly report so that he can hear from the council with any questions that we have and also hear from the citizens. So the way we're going to do this, I know we've had some people speak from the seats. I really can't have that, so if we're going to have anybody who wants to speak, we'll have the sheriff, I'll call for citizen comments. Sheriff will step aside, you can speak into the mic. This way it gets captured on the mic. He'll go first, we'll ask the questions, and then I'll open it up for citizen questions and comments. Deputy Doherty. I'm making you a corporal whether you like it or not, because we had a corporal behind it.
Many years ago. Good evening, everyone. First of all, I apologize for my appearance. I'm covered in cement dust from earlier today, so apologies. Before I address the code sheet and the stats that code related, I can answer some of your questions. The traffic enforcement, all of our deputies, including the Bel Air Beach deputy, during the school hours are assigned to monitor the school stop on Gulf Boulevard and elsewhere. One of those resulted in one of those stolen car arrests. The vehicle sped, basically blew the red light with the red sign on the bus. Deputy Ali Exney, on day shift early in the morning, made a traffic stop right in front of Bel Air Beach. They were occupied by 3 subjects. The car was reported stolen out of county and everybody went to jail, so that's one of them, one example.
Can I interrupt you for 1 second? Do you know how that report of that came in? About the school buses being run?
I'm presuming...
That lady right in the middle there, Jim Van Squire. When Captain Liner was here, we were talking about code enforcement. She came up and she was up. It wasn't me, I was sleeping, but it was like 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning when the kids get on the bus. She had heard it a couple times with horns beeping. That's what they'll do when they run it. And she goes, I've heard it 2 or 3 times. And Captain Liner made a note of it and obviously got it out to all the deputies, and that resulted in a nice arrest. So thank you, citizens, and we do listen, and so do our sheriffs. So please continue.
And before I go further, to address Mr. Booth's complaint about the 2601 Bayshore, about the green dumpster. The city manager and I have had communication, and we're definitely working on it. One thing I didn't, and I apologize to Lynn, late Friday or Friday, right before I get off work, and over the weekend, I received a phone call from the contract, apparently a new contractor. I'm not sure if you got that information, but I wanted to get with him today before I came in, and we just got busy. This contractor, I'll get his information. He's dealing with his sister, apparently the one that's controlling the property, that lives out of state. He's very motivated to get everything done. He's going to be working on the permitting process, coming in and do what needs to be done permit-wise. I became involved on October 6th when there was a dumpster without a cover on it, which is an ordinance violation. Left a courtesy notice to no avail because nobody's there. Somehow he got the information that there was a violation notice on the door on a vacant house. He, in a timely manner, put the cover on the dumpster, and he's working on trying to get this house back in shape. So we should see some progress on that, and I just want to give you an update on that. Lynn, I'll get with you about the contract information, so you can expect him coming in hopefully in the very near future. So, okay. I just noticed that on my activity sheet that you have, and I apologize, the last pages, the dates are marked out. I guess it was probably a printed issue. I'll make sure that's corrected for the next month or the month thereafter. If you see that, I'm not sure you have the dates on.
Yeah, no, it's limited. It looks like you didn't have a wide enough column.
Right,
so yeah.
I'll look into that. So, but through the month of October is when we started our 20 hours a week, from 8 hours a week, and I can break it down. We had 101 new violations. 57 of those were corrected that day. What I do from that point on, I follow up by communicating with the citizens. Out of those 101, out of the remaining ones, I resolved 55 during that month. Well, there were 55 closed that I did follow-ups on. 41 of those resulted in closure. So it's a constant, I've got open cases and communicating with citizens and trying to get the end result as quickly as I can. Out of those 101, I broke down in the columns, you see a C, the letter C, that means citizen complaint. And there were a total of 6 new citizen complaints during October. But a lot of those Cs in that column are in the categories of follow-ups. So even though it's a follow-up, it's citizen-based complaint, just for your information, so you can see that a little better on the spreadsheet. Because I know that's concerning to everyone, how many citizen complaints are compared to proactive enforcement. And then to break down, there's a lot of information in this spreadsheet, which can be broken down in various ways. But during the month of October, the 4 major categories of activity consist of the most were permit checks, which I initiate myself when I see work being done at a house. I'll make sure that there's a permit posted on the property and they're working, doing what they should be doing according to the permit. Out of those 19, 16 of those residents had proper permits. I had to do follow-ups on 3 of them, where they had to go get a copy of the permit, or they're still in the permit process, which they did. 2 of the 3 complied. There's one still outstanding where, for whatever reason, he's just not listed on the property, which I'm dealing with. But that's probably my most significant item of activity compared to everything else. The next significant is landscaping issues, and a total of 14 of those, they're landscaping related. I can break them down into like 7 different categories. The most are basically overgrown grass and weeds exceeding 7 inches in height, and I'm pretty successful in getting closure on that. Out of those, there were just 5 during the month, and it required me to make 9 different follow-ups to get people compliant. They did. And in that category of landscaping, it breaks down into different things. One was visibility. When you come out to Gulf Boulevard, you can't see the oncoming bicycles or runners because the bush is too thick. And within a couple of days, the gentleman cut it. Looks pretty good. So other ones are overgrown hedges. There were 2 cases where there were hazardous trees. People complained about dead trees, and they were afraid of the trees falling on their houses. And it took a little time this was bigger projects for the property owner to acquire the landscaping to get those down, but they complied and were taken care of. And the next item of significance would be parking on grass or landscaping. A lot of residents will park on their grass or rock landscaping, and a lot of them don't realize it's a violation, and I'll communicate with them, and if there's a repeat violation, one of them might actually receive a citation, because I think it might have been the 3rd time of being warned, and we went to citation. But primarily, the majority of people comply, and they understand the ordinance. And then finally, the most significant thing would be dumpsters without covers on it. Again, that one prompted me to go to Bay Shore, where I saw the new dumpster, and then pointed out as well, and we're trying to work with the property owner to get it into compliance. And that's pretty much it.
I have a few questions for you, and Corporal, if this is yours, or maybe it's both of yours, just jump in, okay? Our city's concerned about parking on the grass, but, the car's off the street, and I don't want cars to park on the grass. That's against our code, it's unsightly, it's terrible, our city doesn't go for that. But we've got a much greater problem, and I don't see regular enforcement. We have landscape vehicles and delivery trucks that routinely park in the turn lane on Gulf Boulevard. We have been given excuses like, our trailer's too big and we can't pull it into the gigantic oceanfront estate across the street. I'm sorry, maybe you should bring a smaller trailer, okay? Someone's gonna get killed. We have personally experienced trying to make the turn onto our street, trying to get into the turn lane, and you've got this gigantic landscaping trailer before it. You can't make the turn anymore, and if you do make the turn, you're going blind. I don't know whether it comes in as code or regular police, and it's not just our city. I remember seeing newspaper articles in the Bee that, this is in Reddington, it's all up and down Gulf Boulevard. And, these are not small places across the street. I understand it's a quick delivery, but, when you're going, those turn lanes are there for a reason. You're not supposed to park and block a traffic lane. That's a major fine. And what are we doing about it before someone gets killed?
Well, and I know exactly what you're talking about. I can address that with our command staff, reference enforcement, and I work different beach communities as well, and I communicate with my fellow deputies who do the same. And there's always delivery drivers that's doing that all the way up through the entire beach communities. And then I know we talk about it with the landscapers where they're claiming they can't park anywhere else and they're blocking driveways or whatever. This is they think it's the lesser of the evils. So we can look further into that and so we can enforce wise if that's what the city wants us to do.
Well, I can't, the council doesn't direct you, the city manager, we're just throwing this information out there, but it's not the first time we've called. I know other people have called on it. The excuses that you usually get from the landscapers or delivery people are lame. We can't get in the gate. Well, then you don't get your lawn cut, okay? These are gigantic driveways. I can put my driveway twice into their driveway. I can pull a trailer in there, and I don't drive one regularly. It's not hard. Then they sometimes say, well, we'll just park in Bel Air Beach. No, you won't do that, okay? The landscapers who work in Bel Air Beach can park in Bel Air Beach. You can't park in Bel Air Beach and walk across the street. That's inappropriate, okay? That's that. The other question I have for you, Deputy, is in terms of what you may need from this council or any issues that you're having, is there anything that you need from this council or any problems that you're experiencing that the council needs to help you with?
Control the price of gas.
You need to go to Washington.
No, again, we're just trying out the new hours of, from 8 hours to 20 hours a week. And then we're close with Lynn to accomplish what needs to be done.
At some point, I'll ask you how that 20 is, whether it's too much, too little, or just right, but I think it's too early probably at this point to tell, I would guess, right? I do note that there's a lot more code issues over here that have been found with more time, which makes sense. So, any questions on the council?
I have one. Obviously, we have a new additional turn lane going from Gulf onto the Causeway. I've had 2 residents reach out to me and say it's not going to work. So I did an experiment the other day. I hopped in the inside or the middle lane and made a left turn to where I would have to merge. There is not enough room. I was going to wait and bring this up during your time, but there is not enough room to make that left turn. And I'm wondering if you've noticed the same thing, that it's just, you have to turn so sharp to make that left. If you're in the left lane, you naturally drift right into the merge lane. I almost got clobbered. I know it's going to happen. Do you think that was the best fix?
I thought just as long as the other motorists were being courteous and they let you in when you let in, but that's not always the case. On our perspective, I was wondering who was that from DOT that just did that on their own?
No, I believe our city manager was in contact with them, right? They didn't do that. They studied it, but we approached them, right?
Yeah, we got the intersection report, and the city council got it, and the county did that for us, and part of their plan, one of the things with the intersection report was to take that island out and the trees, and we're just kind of on hold to look at that further. I think there's some flashing the light issues with, it stays red now. I've got to call into the county about that. So,
okay, it looks to me like either where the thick line is, where you tell the cars to stop at, it probably needs to be moved back towards the island. I think that might help the problem. There's not enough room to make that left turn without crossing over into the adjacent lane.
That actually makes sense, and, you know, I was open-minded, you know, and I understand the reasons why they did that, and then I'm on the fence like you to see if it was actually effective or not. Every time I take a turn, I try both just to see what it's like, and and of course, it gets hairy when you get congested traffic making that turn, so, you know.
Yeah, okay, I was just looking for an opinion. That's what I wanted to hear. Thank you.
Any other council questions? Citizens, do you have any questions for our code officer or our deputy? I'm sorry, our corporal. Yes, Mike Kelly, please come up, and I'll just ask the sheriffs just to step aside briefly, and then they'll answer the question in the microphone.
I'm Mike Kelly, 2740 Hibiscus Drive West. I have a question. If you, Deputy Doherty, you said that you do check for permits to make sure there's construction permits from the county for these jobs that you see under construction. Do you ever interact with the actual subcontractors on the job?
I did one today. In fact,
Yeah, Deputy Doherty, I'm going to have you answer in the mic. Is that the question, Mr. Kelly?
The reason I'm asking that is I'm Vice Chairman of the Pinellas County Construction Licensing Board. We have a full staff of investigators that go around and just check with contractors that are out on the streets, parked, doing work at various locations all over the county. If they're found not to have licenses, if they're found not to have license numbers on their vehicles, first fine's $500. If they don't have a license and they don't have numbers on their cards, it's $1,000. Our investigators are spread thin, but we worked with the sheriff for an awfully long time, and we thought we'd give it to you 100%. And I don't know if you are interacting at all with my investigators on the licensing.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly. Deputy Doherty?
Thank you, Mr. Kelly. Actually, I would like to get your contact information to, and I would love to interact. I have not yet specifically interacted with the investigators, but I'm constantly interacting with contractors and subcontractors. I did one today. They were tearing a driveway out along the side. There's a big trailer. The guy's sawing the driveway through rebar. It's a total mess. Of course, I'm going to stop out and check with them. And the contractor had just left, and he mistakenly had the permit with him in his possession, the truck. I advised him it had to be posted on the property. Is that correct?
Yes.
So he's going to have it posted tomorrow. And I was able to get that information and verify that he did actually have the correct permit. So I'm constantly doing that, but the more resources I have to communicate.
By all means, exchange information.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah, the purpose of our board is to find unlicensed contractors. An awful lot of contractors, because labor is very difficult to find, are using unlicensed contractors. If those guys know that in Bel Air Beach, they're being checked to find out that you guys are watching them, and then our investigators, I will start sending them to Bel Air Beach, then we're going to find that the contractors themselves will not go using unlicensed contractors, and those guys will be fined immediately on site. I didn't know if you ever have the authority to say, you better make sure you're licensed.
We do.
Okay, great, thank you.
In fact, further, I've actually sat through some of those hearings and been quite impressive. So.
Great. Any other questions by citizens? Thank you both. Thanks.
I do have one further thing on code related, law enforcement related. Deputy Ally Dickstein got off work at 6 p.m. and she wanted me to relay her sentiment. Pinellas County Sheriff's Office does a fundraiser. I'm not trying to solicit money from anybody, trust me, that's not me. But this is an incredible event called Riding on the Stars. It's an event down in Fort DeSoto on the first Saturday of every December. And it basically raises money for children victims of crimes, or extremely needy kids that will never have a Christmas. So our deputies go and shop for them several weeks before Christmas and we deliver to the parents. They give us a list and so forth. So one other way is if someone would be inclined, other than just donating money, they can actually adopt a family. They work with our staff in our victim advocate division, and where they have more personal involvement with assisting the family if they're able to do so. What I'll do, you can always contact me, but I've got a contact number here. I'll leave.
There's a table back there, there's a presentation table. Maybe if we have a few that we can leave at the front counter for City Hall?
Absolutely. The event itself, down at Fort DeSoto, it's basically bicycle, walking, running, family walks. You don't have to be an athlete to do it. It's fully catered down at the fort. Our helicopter flies in with Santa Claus. It brings toys to all the kids. Are lined up probably 200 deep. The weather's incredible. It's a great outdoor event for such a great cause. So I just wanted to let you guys know.
Thank you. We'll see what we can do about publicizing that for you. Okay, thank you. That takes care of the presentation by the Sheriff's Office and the Code Officer. Item 4 is the presentation of Disability Achievement Center. We have Jody Armstrong, she's former mayor, she told me, and she's director of the outreach for beach mobility mats. So without further ado, Ms. Armstrong.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, hello, council members. Last week I did a presentation to the Barry Island Government Council, and Vice Mayor invited me to speak before you today. I represent Disability Achievement Center. I'm Director of Outreach. We're the Center for Independent Living, serving Pinellas and Pasco. We serve people of all ages and all disabilities. Our goal is to overcome barriers to independence. 1 in 7 people have a mobility impairment. 1 in 7 people cannot get to our beaches today. For nearly 3 years, actually December 8th will be the 3-year mark that the Pinellas County Council for Persons with Disabilities was launched. It is a council, we're an advisory council to the Board of County Commissioners for all things disability related, and I chair that committee. The very first meeting, Treasure Island brought their Moby mat, their beach access mat out. They did a presentation, showed the benefits of it, the ease of care, and it made a lot of sense because it enabled not only people who use wheelchairs to access the beach, it's anyone with a mobility impairment. If you have a bad knee, a bad hip, you're aging into disability, maybe you've got vertigo, you're not steady on your feet, moms with strollers, everybody in Treasure Island uses this mat. So for the last nearly 3 years, I've been advocating up and down the beaches, trying to encourage municipalities in the county to install these access mats where they make the most sense. And earlier this summer, another organization called Help Us Gather, it's another organization that works with people with disabilities. One of their members got a modeling job for surf shop in Clearwater Beach, and this young gentleman uses a wheelchair. And they did the photo shoot on the Moby mat in Treasure Island. And when Help Us Gather found that, they thought that was the neatest thing since sliced bread. And they had Bay News 9 did a piece on them. And so I called the founder because I've been working on this project for a long time, and I said, you know, Robin, we just got to get people out to the beach. You know, how many times you get the family coming down from up north to see Grandma and Grandpa and Grandpa will stay on the seawall and say, see you later. Just like you guys, you can't even go out there without an umbrella. That blows me away. Speaking of people with disabilities, whoa, I can go on with that one, but I won't. So we got to talking, and she says, well, you know, we have a family foundation, and this kind of project for access can really make a difference for us here in Pinellas County. Why don't I fund them? I don't know, I'm a grant writer. When I have somebody say, why don't I fund them? I never get that. Well, the press release went out and we found the interest. Because everyone that I went through and said, hey, would you please put one down, I now am able to go and say, hey, let's do this now. Each of you has a map in front of you, and there are currently 4 access mats in Pinellas County, and 15 proposed in Pinellas and 4 in Pasco. The Forward Foundation will pay for all of them, and including the permit. So right now we had a meeting, a Zoom meeting, with all of the interested parties earlier in October. It included anyone who had already raised their hand and said, yes, please count me in. I'd like to have a mat on my beach. And FDEP, FWC, we had representatives from Nick DeSecli's office, from Linda Cheney's office. Everybody's on board with this so that now the permitting process is not overburdensome. I even have an engineer who's willing to do the drawings pro bono. So we've got all the pieces in place, and we are walking through the steps now of the permitting process. Madeira Beach is ready to go. And what I'm lining up is, Madeira Beach had some questions on theirs, and they were waiting for the questions to come back, because that would give us an insight as to what else FWC or FDEP might want. So now that they have their answers, we're working through everyone else, and we should see these permit applications going in with it. By the end of the year, everyone should have their permit applications in. The permitting process is going to take some time. They've already told us it's going to be months. So we're trying very hard. So my question for Bel Air Beach is, do you have an access point that you would like a beach mat on? And if so, all you have to do is send an email to info@helpusgather.org and say, hey, we'd like to be included. That's all they're asking. You have to ask. And the foundation will, they understand the process, they understand what we're going through, what we're doing, all the steps that we're taking. And the way that it'll work is that once the permits are approved, automatically the foundation will write a check to the city to write a check to the mat provider. And that's really all it's going to be. The only thing they want, you take care of the mat for as long as it's in use, which should be 5 to 7 years. You have to take it up during hurricanes, and each one of these roll-up mats each section's about 48 pounds. And they want you to put a sign out front saying that's what this mat is for mobility purposes, and to include the 3 logos for Disability Achievement Center, Help Us Gather, and Forward Foundation. That's it. I've never had an easier grant in my life. So, and if it's not right for you guys, I understand. It's okay, but I do encourage, because we're all one accident or illness away from being a person with a disability. And I moved here because of that sand. Most of us moved here because of that sand. And I would really like to see everyone who can to be able to get out there. So there's lots of maps for everyone. Everybody wants one. And you've got my card. Reach out to me. I will work with you every step of the way.
First, thank you for coming, and you're doing a great thing here. And it sounds very exciting. We can't just give you an answer tonight, but we'll have a work session coming up in a couple of weeks, and I'm going to ask that we put this on. We can get a consensus right there. You're only asking for an email, but there may be other questions. We probably won't be able to actually bring it for a resolution until December, but that's not that long, so that grant will still be here in case. Okay. We have one public beach access. We have several beach walkovers, but our main beach access is Morgan Park. Now, I'm mayor of this city, but there's another city across the street that makes up 19 blocks that Bel Air Beach uses. That's Bel Air Shore. They have commission meetings usually later in the month. That's what we were talking about earlier, the 6th Street, the 12th Street, 19th Street access points. All the Bel Air Beach residents who live in those areas use that, so they may be interested in that also. I'm not sure what kind of a sell you're going to have to get them, but it's worth making that presentation there too, so that all the citizens, no matter where they may be in the city, don't have to travel all up to Morgan Park, because that may be an inconvenience. I don't have a picture of this. Do you have a picture or something that you might be able to send us? I'm not sure what they look like. I've never seen, I don't think I've seen one. So.
I do, yeah. Actually, MobiMat is the vendor that we have been working with. That poor man, I drug him up and down these beaches for the last 2.5 years, measuring, walking, and giving me quotes. So we pretty much know what's what. And they have a really good website. It's interactive.
That's MobiMat.
MobiMat, yeah, it's at the top of the.
Okay.
Yeah, top of that.
Council, any other questions?
I'll take
Hey,
questions.
sure.
Stunned.
Citizens? Wow, you get easy grants and you get easy questions. So.
Hey, life is pretty good.
That's as good as it gets.
Yeah, but anything disability related, you're walking right through that fine line. As Disability Achievement Center, as a Center for Independent Living, we are strong advocates for persons with disabilities. And I don't know, I really believe the beaches should be accessible.
Absolutely. Everybody should have the right to enjoy these beautiful beaches and enjoy them safely.
I thank you so much. We are going to have, even if you choose not to, there's still going to be enough to put Pinellas County, make Pinellas County the most accessible beaches in the state. I can't say the world, in the state. New England has quite a few of them, but this is a statewide effort. There are many, many municipalities around the state that are trying to do this. Naples has done a study. They're trying to put one in every half mile, but they don't have the funding. We are the only county that has the funding. So what we're going to do, as soon as we get these down, we're going to visit St. Pete Clearwater to promote disability tourism. That's a huge industry that's untapped. And we've got the world's most beautiful beaches, why not the most accessible? We're the perfect fit. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your great work. All right, that concludes the regular part here. We're going to move into the consent agenda. Council, we doing okay? We've been here now for an hour and 10. Everybody's all right? Not hearing any issues? Okay, we're going to do item 5, 6, 7, and 8, all part of the consent agenda. We have approval of the September 20th, 2021 City Council work session minutes. These were tabled from the October 4th meeting at my request. There were amendments that were requested today, so those were made fine. I'm happy with it. Item 6 is approval of October 4th, 2021 City Council meeting minutes. Then item 7 is approval of October 18th, 2021 City Council work session minutes. And number 8 is approval of City Council monthly invoice for, City Attorney monthly invoice for legal services. So we're going to approve items 5, 6, 7, and 8. First, I need a motion. Motion by Frank Bankert.
Second.
Second by David Gaddis. They're on.
Correction?
Yes.
On item number 6, the October 4th meeting, items number 8, 9, and 10, it says they were moved from the regular agenda. They were actually moved from the consent agenda to the regular agenda. This is pages 4 and 5 of the October 4th meeting. It's just-
I'm sorry, it says, 8 says move to the regular agenda. Is that not correct?
No. But then if you go further down on the next page, on page 4, regular agenda. Approval of the September, it says moved from the regular agenda. It moved from the consent agenda to the regular agenda.
Right, so I'm not sure I'm following what the issue is. So I'm
the same thing twice.
That was it?
Yeah,
Okay.
page 4, where
Oh, I see.
it should be moved from the consent. Earlier it was
Yes,
moved to the
you're right.
regular, now it's moved from the consent.
Okay.
So Patty said she could make that correction.
Yeah, Ms. Notaro, Councilmember Notaro, my issue is that it's a consent agenda, we're not even supposed to discuss it. So let me, okay,
So
no,
we should correct it.
hang on, we're gonna get it right, because what we should, if this happens again, please move that item out of the consent agenda, but I'm not gonna get hung up on a technicality here. Does the council have any problem with amending this on the fly like this? This is a minor, this is to just keep the minutes proper. Do we have any objection?
None.
We have none. Okay, we'll do that. So, Patty, you're familiar with exactly the changes that have to happen?
Yes, I've already changed it. Thank
Okay,
you.
perfect. All right, so other than those changes, we're good? All right, then, so the motion right now is to approve the consent agenda, and that is items 5, 6, 7, and 8. I'll read it again. The yes vote will approve this. Approval of the September 20th, 2021 City Council work session meeting minutes. Item 6, approval of October 4th, 2021 City Council meeting minutes. Item 7, approval of October 18th City Council work session minutes. And item 8, approval of City Attorney monthly invoice for legal services. I'll take a voice vote. All in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? We have 7-0. Passes. Move into the regular agenda. Item 9. This is consideration of appointment to the Board of Adjustment. This is a City Council vote by ballot to fill vacant board seat. We have an applicant, Tony Gatliff. First off, is Mr. Gatliff here? Mr. Gatliff's here. Will you like to be heard? Sure. Okay, hang on. Let me get the motion first, and then I'm going to invite you up, okay? First, will somebody make this motion?
So moved.
Moved by Dave Gaddis, second.
Second.
Second by Robin Aki. Council, will you dispense with your comments until after we hear from Mr. Gatliff? Mr. Gatliff, you have the floor.
Tony Gatliff, 2228 Donato Drive. I'm really just here to help the community. It's, I think we should all do whatever we can to participate. And I've got about 40 years doing type of research. here in Pinellas County, cities, counties, state attorneys, title companies. I think I can bring that knowledge to the Board of Adjustment. Is that any questions?
Sit, hang right there, I'm gonna see if there's any questions from the council while you're here, okay? This way you can answer them, hop back and forth, okay? Council, do we have any questions?
I have a comment.
Sure.
I know Mr. Gatliff, and I think he would be a great addition to the Board of Adjustment.
Mr. Gatliff, I don't know you. I've seen some writings of yours though, and it concerned me a little bit. And I wouldn't say it's something that I would say, I certainly, if I see your background, you certainly have an excellent background, I think you'd be fine for the board. I am a little concerned about some of the writings. Were you here earlier when we were speaking about this whole beach umbrella issue and what was going on?
Yes, I was.
And I'm reading some of the stuff that you wrote, and it's directly contrary to what the law and the facts are. So I want you to understand, and you might know this already, but I want to say this for anybody who serves on this board. Mike Kelly's here, and he'll confirm this. I know I'm right on it. This is what's called quasi-judicial board. You don't report to us. Actually, the next line of review after you make your decision is court. They look at what you do. So if an applicant comes before the Board of Adjustment, your decision is final. You speak for the city. That's why you're a judicial board. And that calls marrying the facts to the law. And my concern is some of the stuff that I'm reading here is directly, it's incorrect. Some of the stuff that you posted out on Facebook, okay? And I'll tell you, beach umbrellas, basically your idea that the city can make whatever law it wants, that's not correct. And you heard about the constitutionality, you heard about, and it gets even more detailed when we start getting into what the deeds themselves say in terms of architectural rights. Then you get into what's this whole issue, which isn't even formed yet in the court, about this whole constitutional right to the wet sand and for recreation, but they don't, do. It's not simple. And the only reason why I said, and then there was another comment on when the city cut down, butchered the COs, which still haven't grown back, and we said there was no laws violated. Well, I've got the DEP report, there was a law violated, okay? We're not supposed to cut them that low, and it was an error, a bad error, and it's never gonna happen again. And I don't wanna give misinformation to the citizens. I don't doubt that you wanna help citizens, but I will caution you that, what you're going on is that this board, everything that you do on this board is subject to review. So if somebody doesn't get that variance and they don't like what they say, or somebody writes something, now the city goes to, they go to take the city to court and it starts looking ugly. So that's all I want to say.
Those comments are on social media.
Yes.
Everybody shares their opinions and frankly, their First Amendment right to speak their mind. But I appreciate your comments.
Council? I'm going to come to the citizens right after council. Any other council comments or questions for Mr. Gatliff? Now let's open it up to the citizens. We have Mike Kelly. Mr. Gatliff, I'm just going to have you step just right in that doorway there. Let's have Mike Kelly speak, and then if you need to answer it or rebut it, you get the mic again.
Mayor?
Yes?
And Councilmember Gunn would like to speak when you're ready.
Okay, I'll take him. What we'll do is I'll take him right after this, and then I'll go back to other citizen comments. Mike's here, standing here, so let's have Mike. If Glenn doesn't have a problem with that. Mr. Gunn? No problem?
No.
Okay. Go ahead.
Once again, I'm Mike Kelly. I'm speaking in this capacity as the current chairman of the Board of Adjustment. I'm here actually to let you know that on a personal level and a pleasure level, I have known Tony Gatliff for over 27 years. I had the privilege of serving with him and participating with him on a very successful men's softball league back in the 90s. Tony is a very dependable man, he's a very dedicated man, and he's a man of character. So I'm here to endorse this appointment to our Board of Adjustment. And our Board of Adjustment is also a board that has to be dependable, has to be credible, and has to be careful because of what the issues are before us. It is very respectful of our citizens, and I would hope that if you do appoint Mr. Gatliff, that he would be a good addition and a respectful person. His character is what I'll vouch for. Thank you.
Very well. Thank you. Want to disagree with any of that, Mr. Gatliff?
No, I wouldn't add though that I think I was the best third baseman.
That's what I was going to ask you. What position did you play? So you have a good arm. All right.
Third base.
Third base. Okay. Any other citizen comments? Yes, now we have Glenn Gunn. You might want to turn that up, Patty, because it was a little hard to hear that. Glenn, you have the floor.
Thank you. Yeah, I just want to say that Tony Gatlin has my trust and confidence. I think he's a person of character, and I think some of the comments he made on social media were a direct response to a lot of misstatements and misconceptions and just vile statements. I'm very surprised, and while I agree with Mayor Bonzo's comments and as well as Mr. Kelly's comments that board members supposed to remain impartial, I'm surprised we're having this conversation now when a sitting member of a board was on social media weighing in on events taking place and espousing a lot of misperceptions and misinformation. And I'm just very surprised we're having this conversation now while we're considering a new member, and we never had this conversation when we had this issue as the elephant in the room before. So I'm fully in support of bringing aboard Mr. Gallup. I think he is a person of character, and he has my full trust and confidence as a member of the Board of Adjustment. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Gunn. Mr. Gallup, do you have anything to add on that? I am going to say something, but if you might want to speak after I go, but it's up to you.
Go ahead.
Okay, so everybody has a right to give information, but this is attributed to you. If it's not you, please tell me. Tony Gatliff, Bel Air Beach, didn't the umbrella hoopla teach us that the land to the mean high water mark is private land? That's not correct. If so, then no laws were broken. This is in regard to the COs. It has nothing to do with the mean high water mark. It has to do with what's known as the coastal construction control line, which in our city is pretty much equal to the retaining wall, which is why there was no violation on 6th Street, but there was partial violation, a lot of violation on 12th Street, complete violation on 19th Street, and complete violation on Morgan Street. I've got the Florida DEP report here, and I'm not going to read it into the record, but it talks about the violations over here. So, again, anybody has the right to write whatever they want, okay? But if we're going to help the citizens, which I don't doubt that you really do want to do, okay? I want to help them with the right information. That was bad, what happened. That was destruction of our beautiful seacoast, and it better never happen again. I reported it, and I'll report it again next time. And I am told from the DEP, we will not get a break if it happens again. Those COs still haven't grown back. And although 6th Street was behind the coastal construction line because that retaining wall is actually in front of the dunes, if you go there, and I was just there Friday because I was enjoying the high surf, and let me tell you, the erosion that's there is significant. Those COs hold the grasses together, and right after those things were cut, we had another storm and wiped out a lot of sand, and that sand has never come back. So I just want to make sure the residents get the right information. This report is public record. It's sitting in Patty Gentry as it's from Florida DEP. It's addressed to me from July 29th. So you go on social media and write whatever you want, but again, if you want to help the citizens, particularly being on the board, now you'll be a representative of our city, I'm just asking that make sure we get our facts straight. Okay?
Most of my comments were in response to others who also didn't necessarily have their facts.
Don't doubt that. I've seen some of the backdoor, next door stuff.
Thank you for your consideration.
But thank you for your interest here. Council, do we have any other questions for Mr. Gatliff before we take up our discussion and vote? Mr. Gatliff, have a seat. We don't have to go send this out to the election division. We do this right in front of you here.
Sounds good.
Any other council questions before we call the vote? Patty's given us, Patty, can we use the ones that are inside our binder? So inside our binder, we have a vote, and now I'll make sure I can say this properly. We have one person on the ballot. This isn't like North Korea, though. It doesn't say you have to vote for one. You may vote for up to one. That person is Tony Gatliff. A yes vote will get him on. He needs a majority of this council to be, actually he needs 4 votes to be on. Please vote yes or no, and hand your ballot to Patty. Lynn, we always do this, and you just have me tally the votes, so we have a double count. She's just doing this to build suspense, Mr. President. She knows who won already, but.
Councilmember Aki voted for Mr. Gatliff. Councilmember Bankard voted for Mr. Gatliff. Councilmember Notero voted for Mr. Gatliff. Councilmember Swope voted for Mr. Gatliff. Vice Mayor Gaddis did not vote.
Wait, he has to vote.
Hold on, let me look. I've got.
Look, it's strong.
She distracted me.
It's the hanking Chad.
Vote, you know that, Mr. Gaddis, right? Go ahead, and how did Mr. Gaddis vote after he voted here?
Yeah. Vice Mayor Gaddis voted for Mr. Gatliff, and Mayor Manzo voted for Mr. Gatliff.
Even with the questionable vote of the vice mayor, you win 7-0. Congratulations. You are, and you know, I saw that we had a thing a little while ago where the city attorney had given some instructions and stuff to one of the groups. I think you were on the group because I was looking at it about sunshine law and stuff like that. I think you're familiar with that, right? The sunshine laws, and you can't speak outside the about board business, like you can't speak to Mike anymore about the board other than we got a meeting on Tuesday or something like that. If there's any questions, Fred Riley here is the city attorney, you can always ask him, but it's always better to ask in advance than to do something and find out that you violated the law. Florida's very strict, essentially. You can't talk about anything other than like, do we have a meeting on Tuesday? You can't say, hey, I really think that's a great idea, we should give that guy the dock. You can't do that. Okay. So, Mr. Kelly?
Mr. Gunn vote for,
Oh my God, thank you.
you might want to do that.
Yeah. Oh, Glenn. Councilmember Gunn, I'm sorry, would you hold that up again? Okay. Mayor Manzo,
Yes?
I didn't count Mr. Councilmember Gunn, he voted for Mr.
Really, this is
Gatlin.
like Broward County here. Okay, so Councilmember Gunn, how do you vote?
He held up his vote, it's for Mr. Gatlin.
Mr. Downer. Okay, so it is 7-0. The second corrected vote still has you as the winner. You only need 4 anyway, so even if someone challenges it, we got it. So still, congratulations. Mr. Kelly?
Yeah, your comment was correct about sunshine laws and proper training. We had in March, as most of you know, a Board of Adjustment training session. Since that time, the council has appointed 3 new members to the Board of Adjustment. It might be worthwhile for us as a board, Lynn, if you and I can do another training session in the next 6 months, it will be good for the council, the Board of Adjustment members that have already heard it once, but for 3 new sitting members, it will give them more confidence in the upcoming
Let me
hearings.
see if I can dispense with this right here, okay? Council, he's made a proposal. We don't need a resolution for this. I think it's a great idea. I don't think anybody's going to disagree, but if we do, does anybody have an issue with, he has 3 new members. That's almost the majority.
We have 7
on
members.
your board, right? So, yeah.
But three of them have been appointed since March, actually since May, after our training session in March. So I just think it might be strong to do it again. Fred, if you want to...
Hang on, let me get you the approval first, okay? So does anybody have a problem with that? So now we can, Fred, if you would, work out with Mr. Kelly and with the city manager what a convenient time. I would like you to make sure this time that we can get all three people there, so whatever we have to do to make the three work, whether it be a Saturday morning or whatever, Fred loves working Saturday morning, so.
We'll make it work for everybody.
Thank you.
Those three, I'm sure, will be there.
Good suggestion, thanks. All right, let's move on to item number 10. Okay. All right, consideration of ordinance 2102, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Bel Air Beach, Florida, providing for the amendment of Chapter 86 signs of the City Code Ordinance, providing for incorporation of recitals, providing for the amendment of Chapter 86 signs of the City Code Ordinance, providing for a copy to be kept on file, providing for severability, providing for the repeal of all ordinances in conflict herewith, and providing for an effective date. It doesn't say it here, but Patty, correct me if I'm wrong, this is the first reading, correct? First reading. We need two before we can pass it. First, I'll need a motion.
So moved.
Dave Gaddis. Second?
Second.
Second by Leslie Natero. Dave Gaddis.
I will defer to the city attorney.
Fred Riley? He's referring to you. Any comments on this? And by the way, folks, just to give you a quick background, we have been debating this in work sessions for probably 5 months now. So with that, Mr. Riley.
At the last workshop, the city council discussed this at length. It was one of a number of, as the mayor said, one of a number of times it's been discussed. I made several changes to it that came out of that workshop. There are a new definition for activated component and a new definition for activated signs, and I changed the reference elsewhere in the Chapter 86 to activated signs, so that part has been clarified. There was a lengthy discussion at the workshop that was led by City Manager Reeves about the actual size of the signs, and that amount was, or that was quantified, and the signs will not exceed, the temporary signs will not exceed 4 square feet. And there was another change that Leslie Natero requested, where there was a sentence that had been repeated twice, so one of those was deleted, and I really don't think there was that much more that we made in the way of revisions. So this is, other than those couple things, I want to say there was one more very minor point, but those are the major things that have changed. And it's now in the court for the city council to address on first reading.
First, I want to thank you, Mr. Riley, and I want to thank the city council. We have went around and around on this thing, not because it's an easy issue, because it's a very difficult issue. Signage is First Amendment right, okay? First Amendment rights obviously are, the cornerstone. There's a reason why it's the First Amendment and not the, Seventh Amendment. And you have to be careful in what you restrict and how you restrict it. And this was the best compromise that the city council was able to come up with and walk that fine line. And the problem with walking the fine line, as Mr. Riley has said and as I've said as attorneys, you can't see the line. The line's all squiggly, and the line is all gray, and it's dark at night, and the courts are all over the place with this stuff. So I think a council member had asked, does this guarantee that we're not going to ever have an issue, with somebody bringing a legal issue? No, it doesn't guarantee anything. Somebody could always make that challenge. Fred Riley cites a whole bunch of case laws that went, to various appellate courts and Supreme Courts that are all on sign ordinances and stuff. So this is the best attempt, and I don't want anyone, and this is the best attempt of this council, and I don't want anyone, I'll say picked on if it doesn't work out. If 3 years from now somebody says, hey, there's a problem in there, that's not any one of the people's fault that did this. You cannot bulletproof this. This is way better than what we had. Okay, what we had is a problem. In fact, it was so bad, we actually suspended the enforcement of it. So this is a great compromise. I will be voting for it, and I encourage everyone else to do the same. Anyone else?
I have a comment.
Yeah, go to Frank, and then you're on second round, Dave. Okay, Frank?
I appreciate the work you did, Mr. Riley, on this. I understand your argument, Mr. Mayor. The problem is it grew from 6 pages to 26 pages. It's just too convoluted for me. I can't support it. I understand there could be litigation coming forward, but there could be litigation on everything that we do. So, again, no offense, Mr. Riley, I think you did a great job.
None taken.
Okay.
Anyone first round, then we come back to Dave Gaddis. Okay.
No, I was just going to add that this is many months in the works. Many hours we've spent on this. I know it looks a little overwhelming, and it is. It takes a long time to get through this. However, in the event that something does come up in the future, I believe that anyone would look at this documentation and see that we tried everything we could to satisfy the needs of the city and our sign ordinance. So I'm for it.
Anyone else on council? And then open it up to the citizens. No other council? Glenn Gunn, I'm not sure we could always hear him. Does he want to say anything, Patty? No? He's not holding up a hand? Okay, good.
No.
So we will go to the citizens then. Citizens, any comments on the sign ordinance? John Hansing, please, up here.
John Hansick, 22nd Street. I've read through this, and it's taken a lot of time, it's taken a lot of hard work. And as previously mentioned, it's really grown. But my concern is, there's a couple of things in here that I question. In section 86-64, permitted temporary signs.
John, give us a second to get to that, okay? Sure, what page is it? It's easier, just give us the page.
It's on page 21 of your packet.
21. Okay.
It's subparagraph Charlie, placement standard. Temporary signs and support structures are to be posted not less than 8 feet from the back of the curb of a street and should not be posted on or over a public right-of-way or easement. I get that this talks about the boulevard out here and Gulf Boulevard, Causeway and Gulf Boulevard. That part, without actually taking the tape measure and measuring from the back of the concrete curb 8 feet in, puts it on the sidewalk. For sure, if not, on private property. Okay, go to the next page. 22, and it would be...
John, do you mind if I just hold that full? Best person to ask on this, if you don't mind trying to, you just brought something up because, you know, usually when we don't, most of the streets do not have sidewalks, so you just take, when I did the election, you take 3 paces off the curb and it seemed to keep me out of Lynn's hair for most of them. So, but what about this when we do have a sidewalk? How do we handle this one, Mr. Reeves?
Well, typically, for us, we just use the back of the sidewalk for the.
8 feet from the back of the sidewalk.
Yes, typically. That keeps it, because it's in, the way the code reads, you're not supposed to put it in the right way. So if it comes from 8 foot back to the sidewalk, it's not the right way.
It's charging now.
And on the side streets, we use 8 foot from the back of the curb, because some right of
Oh, that's not what this says on the next page. It says 8 feet from the pavement, asphalt.
Where is that, Mr. Hansing, on the next page?
It's under location. Persons who live on streets other than Gulf and Causeway Boulevard may place temporary signs and shall not be located closer than 8 foot to the paved roadway and shall be placed only on the public property. Now, there's an easement on everybody's property.
Right. No, that's, we're,
No,
the
it's
rule
right.
is I'll tell you how I do it, and I think, it depends how we're gonna consider the valley curb. I take it 8 feet from the valley curb. I think that's the way we write this, but you really aren't supposed to be driving the valley curb, but it's not the pavement, but. say valid curb.
Yeah, in C it says back of the curb of the street. That's what it says. Placement standard, 8 feet from the back of the curb.
Right, but then Mr. Hanzig alerted us to
If you go to page 22,
location.
and under the subparagraph 2 or 3,
Well, this is actually an exception for only for the open house and garage sale signs. So it's not all the other signs that were the temporary signs. So there's a slight difference for open house and garage sale signs. There is a difference between the two. I don't think they conflict.
so maybe somebody needs to clarify with an upcoming election. Because the way I interpret this, you can't have any political signs in the right of way, even in front of City Hall on election day, between the sidewalk and the curb. Number 2, you can't have them on Gulf Boulevard, because those little wire thingies are not going to penetrate the concrete sidewalk, and if you go above the sidewalk, you're on private property. If I want to put a garage sale sign, or I want to put holiday decorations that are temporary in my half moon in front of my house, I got to put them 8 foot, that puts them up under the palm trees. You guys need to clarify a little better what you're trying to tell us, because basically you're saying here you're not going to violate our constitutional rights, but they're extremely limited the way I read this when it comes to the actual placement.
That's correct, okay? And again, I'll speak only for myself, but I'm pretty sure every candidate did this. I didn't hear of any election violations, except there were people who placed stuff in front of City Hall, and that's inappropriate. You're not allowed to put stuff on Gulf Boulevard. If you put it on the strip between the sidewalk and the street, it doesn't belong there. That would be in violation even under our old one. If you place it on the grass, and I had many on Gulf Boulevard, and so did other people, you need the owner's permission. Every one of those was with the owner's permission. You cannot place it on someone's property. And you had to actually knock on the door and make sure they said it's okay to put it there. So, no, you have no right to place it on anyone's property, or vacant lot for that matter.
No, I clearly understand that, but the way I'm reading this, and I was taught very clearly when I wrote policies and procedures in the military, to read objectively, don't read into it. But the way I read this ordinance, it effectively does violate my constitutional rights based on where you can place it.
Well, on page 24, under political signs, number 2, it says, when you were talking about upcoming political cycle, it says, all setbacks set forward, applicable to political signs, they may not be less than 7.5 feet from the edge of any road service, or not less than 2 feet from any existing sidewalk adjacent to the private property. So does that cover that part?
Still puts my,
I mean,
any political sign I would desire to place in my front yard, going to put it up in the palm trees. And just to be clear, I would take a measure, either from probably do it from the back of the gutter, the concrete gutter, just to be safe, the extra several inches, so that somebody doesn't come along and take it out of my yard, even though that is an easement, but it's still, I pay the taxes on that.
We've always allowed the placement of the easement, because if you didn't, and I remember, I'll quote Lynn directly, every sign would be like, because I think you have 15 feet in front of every yard or so with easement, so you would actually be 15 feet into it. Nobody would be able to see, you might as well not even have signs, okay? So it's always been off of the curb, but not to obscure traffic. So I didn't have it, I mean, this to me was clear enough, and we do require, under 86-64, B, which is on page 21, it does talk about no temporary sign shall be erected on any property without the authorization of the owner or resident thereof, except as provided here.
Understood.
So I mean, if somebody sticks a sign on somebody's property and without authorization, you just throw it away. I mean, it's
Right, no, I get that part. I'm just talking about me, the property owner. But again, the way I read this, as it's written, it restricts my constitutional right to freedom of expression. That's all I wanted to say.
I'm just trying to understand, I don't know.
I think I can explain this. I believe that what we've done is we've set a rule where he has no place to put a sign.
Is that because, that's what I was gonna ask, is it because of the palm, I don't know, I've driven by it too many times, but I don't remember where the palm trees are. Is it because your palm trees are in the way, or is it because,
I have, in my property, I have a rounded driveway.
Okay.
Because there's no on-street parking. Right. Okay? On the back side of that circumference, if you will, is where the palms are. And I have one big one in the center that's getting taller. But I'll go tomorrow and I'll measure and I'll shoot you an email.
7 feet off the
I'll
curb.
tell you just where there would be.
7 feet off the curb, there should be some room there, hopefully.
It'll be up under the palm trees, trust me.
All right.
I was a precision machinist.
I don't doubt it.
Mayor, he's got, I'm aware of John's, and there's a couple other houses.
Right.
He's got landscaping there.
Right.
Now, to the wings of his yard, there's probably grass areas, which he could put a sign there. But there's a lot of houses that have that curved with landscaping, and yes, if you took it 7 feet off the curb, you might be in the middle of that landscaping and you wouldn't see anything.
Right.
But
That's your landscaping, right?
That's right.
We give you the option if you, I hate to say it, you can put the sign in or you can keep the landscaping and you might not be able to do both depending on your setup, but the reason why it's 7 feet is for safety. That's why it's 7 feet. It's so that you look down a block and you can see if the neighbor's car is pulling out of the driveway. Because I'll tell you, we're coming up to a political season, you get a lot of signs on the street and you cannot see down the street so easily as you can like right now when there's nothing out there. So that was the whole idea behind the 7.5 feet, the 8 feet, wherever it is. It's really strictly a safety thing, but your results may vary depending on how your lot is. So we'll figure something out. Any other citizens? Yes, sir.
Good evening, Mayor Manzo and City Council members. My name is Nicholas Michael Zabel. I reside at 3320 Hibiscus Drive West. I am a student of the Public Policy and Administration program under the direction of Jeff Cronstable at St. Petersburg College. I come before you tonight to speak on agenda item number 10 about the city ordinance regarding Chapter 86 signs. This would be the consideration of ordinance 21-02, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Bel Air Beach, Florida, providing for the amendment of Chapter 86 signs of the City Code of Ordinances, providing for the incorporation of
Mr. Zabel, may I interrupt you if you will? You have 3 minutes, and I want you to make the most of it. We know the ordinance, it's in front of us, believe me, we know this one. Go right into what you want to tell us, okay?
All right, we'll do it. In its current state, this ordinance under the general provisions, in its current state, this ordinance regulates how signs within city limits may be displayed. Depending on the type of signage, it states when and where the sign may be placed, depending upon the type of property. It also determines the size of the posted signage. Under general provisions of section 86-61, item number 5, it states that any sign, including its base, which is broken or damaged or which becomes unsightly, shall be repaired by the property owner or agent of the owner who is responsible for the sign. What is there in this ordinance that determines the meaning of the word unsightly? Is that a matter which is left between the property owner and the code enforcement? In some ways, can this be used by members of the city to restrict freedom of speech because they dislike a sign and believe it to be unsightly? While I can understand the importance of keeping the city looking nice as it attracts more people to move here, my main concern is the protection of the citizens' freedom of speech. I believe that this is something the City Council should investigate as it could be interpreted differently than it was intended, which could cause future lawsuits in the future. That's all I have to say on that.
Excellent. Thank you. Very well said. And now you've given given us something else to look at here, so. And you actually had a little bit extra time too, so.
Yeah, I definitely, I planned it all out, I had plenty of time.
No problem. We knew what you were talking. If you don't mind staying up there, I'm gonna, again, we've done a lot of debate on this, and this is, gentlemen, Mr. Zabel, you've come forward and highlighted something that even in, all the readings we've done, this is how, when I say it, people say, you're being a lawyer. Well, so is he. And then, you know what, I'd rather he do this here than somebody be doing it up in federal court. So with that said, I'm gonna turn it over, because this is what we have our city attorney for, Mr. Riley. Do we want to make any comments on this? And, he raises an issue here that may require some discussion. I'm gonna look for your legal guidance on this one.
The comment he's made is related to section 86-61, subsection 5, correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
And his comment was that regarding really the word unsightly, it's not defined.
Well, and this is repetitive because I've already said it, but we've spent more than a year going over this. There have been a lot of things that have been defined, been further defined. That was one of the things that we felt, or the council felt and directed me to address, was places where there was, it would be helpful to have a better definition than the one that we had, and we've gone through and added actually quite a few different definitions. The word unsightly is, there's a lot of things, just so you understand how this was put together, there were certain things that in the drafting process that were changed, and I know this will be good for a laugh, but I tried to change as little as I possibly could. The thing that was the major change to the ordinance was oriented towards establishing the basis for the city to say, we want a ordinance that supports a attractive community, and we have standards that will make this an attractive community. And I always would use the same example. Bel Air Beach is a residential community, and Bel Air Beach is not US 19 on almost any section that you choose. It's simply, those are two different worlds. So a lot of the stuff that was added was going to show, or to give a basis for why these things are justified based on what the community needs are and what the community standards are, and that the city council has debated a lot of those. My legal answer to the question about the word unsightly is, if a word is not typically defined in a statute or an ordinance, then it's given the normal and customary usage of the word. So, unsightly to most people would mean, something that's dilapidated or in disrepair or that type of thing. Ultimately, if there's any action taken, it would be typically through code enforcement, and if somebody had a code enforcement case, which would not be before the city council, the special magistrate for the code enforcement hearing would make a determination whether that was unconstitutionally vague or not, if the case hinged on that one word. I personally am not uncomfortable with the words which are broken or damaged or which becomes unsightly. Those, to me, are pretty good legal standards, and most people would have some understanding of what those meant. So my answer is, I don't think it needs to be revised further.
I'd like to make a comment.
Sure.
I think the key word you need to look at is which, or two words, is which becomes. So at the time it was installed, it was not unsightly. It became that way later. So that would indicate to me that we're looking at wear and tear.
And my question, at what point is it determined that it becomes unsightly? Like, there's, it's scratched up a tiny bit, but it's still, overall intact, but not over, it's not. It's the, it's the vagueness of that word, Anything you can be considered unsightly if it's marred, marred, weather or whatever. So I'm just wondering, at what point is it considered unsightly?
Mr. Zabel, I'm going to actually agree with Attorney Riley and Vice Mayor Gaddis. And I'm an attorney, I don't know if you know that, but and I love picking these things apart. That's like a hobby of mine. But I don't have a problem with this one, and I'll tell you why. And it's a good observation I make. And listen, if you're not an attorney, you should think of becoming one, because this is something somebody could challenge. But you're not going to be able to challenge it because you don't like the message on it, because that doesn't make it unsightly. And there's a famous Supreme Court opinion about pornography, and they said, well, what does that mean? And the judge said, we know it when we see it, okay? There's a sign, I know, somebody sent a picture around not too long ago. This thing was out there 3 years ago when I was campaigning for mayor. It's rusty, it's falling apart, it's on an angle. I don't know why it hasn't been pulled and stuck in City Hall's dumpster, okay? It's on a vacant lot. It's unsightly, okay? But then there's new ones, no, not a scratch. I mean, I think that would be unreasonable. There's a division of reasonableness. If you were here earlier, you heard me talking about laws have to be reasonable, so any sign could have a little bit of weathering, but to the point, where the lettering is worn off of it, or it's rusty, or the chain is no longer holding the sign up. I mean, then we start to get there. What's that point? I mean, there's a lot of things where how much is too much. I just finished an appeal on how much was too much in a legal standard in terms of a video that was shown to the jury. How much was too much? And it's a balancing act. That's basically what the court would say. It's a balancing act. So, excellent observation. I'm okay with it the way it is right now, but if anybody ever gets nailed on this one. And the other thing I'll tell you too is our code enforcement, Danny Doherty is left here, but our focus on code enforcement, we just had a meeting on this, is supposed to be about gaining compliance and education. So we're not supposed to be the Gestapo and we come in and go, we don't like your sign, and it's getting pulled out and thrown in the truck, and you can get it from Lynn Reeves and he's going to charge you $10 for Thursday. That's not what we're about. Somebody should come, if they think the signs get a little rusty or whatever, they should have that discussion with you, like, hey, maybe throw a little paint on it or something like that. That's what it's supposed to work. The reason why we're actually doing this, because it didn't work that way. We had a couple signs that were confiscated in the town, and people came right in there, and they didn't threaten to sue us, but they told us that they could have, and we all know they had a point. So that's where we're coming from. I don't know if it satisfies you. I think you still have you have a good finding here, but I think it's clear enough, at least for me as an attorney. Mr. Bankert?
I think he raises a good point. I put a Frank Bankert sign out for council, you don't like it, you throw an egg at it, is it unsightly?
That's the point I'm getting at. What, it's like, oh, I don't like it, and if it's, getting towards that, definition that you have of unsightly, and if someone reports it as unsightly because they don't like it, that's kind of what I'm getting at.
They're going to have a hard time if they don't like it. But, if a sign becomes unsightly, somebody paints it over, Frank's going to have to dig into his campaign treasury and replace that one. But one of the other things that we have here is, and this, I'm going to say this to the city manager now because it should be highlighted to code. We are going to be coming up on election soon. You can sit there with Mr. Hansick and his tape measure and get this thing down perfect and make sure you have it exactly right. And some landscaper's cutting the lawn and he moves your sign. He doesn't know our ordinance and it's supposed to be 7.35 feet. He doesn't know that, okay? So code should be about compliance. Move the darn sign, move them around. I know I moved 1 million of them because people get the lawn cut every week and a lot of signs move. We put them in the right spot, the candidates will, but other people move them. And, again, this is supposed to be about just move them where they belong. Now, if somebody puts a wall wrong, you might want to have a little call with that person and say, read the rule. But, just want to highlight that because it's not, somebody can move them. They move them by accident. They don't know the rule. But again, your sign shouldn't be confiscated. If we do that, that's too heavy-handed. I will never support that kind of code enforcement as mayor. Never. I don't think anybody on this council did. I don't know if we helped you, but you raised a good point.
Thank you for your time to help me to understand the data better.
Excellent observation. Thank you. Any other citizens? Yes, sir.
I'm Roger Mull, I'm by Cosmic Boulevard, and reading over, first of all, thank you for all this work, you guys. I was a trial, but the only thing I saw excluded is, I think it was tried to deal with on page 7, rule number 9, for bright flashing lights, it says lessened. You just may want to consider whether putting an amendment in later or just putting in an item now. But like I mentioned at the work session is that photophobia and bright lights being flashed can cause neurological disorders, causing either, in some cases, for people with migraines, for other people with bipolar disorder, and for epilepsy. And they've even made cities take off their photo radars because it has stimulated attacks for people who have caused accidents. And so I would hate for us to be stimulating any of those neurological disorders because we don't have something in there that keeps us from having flashing signs with bright lights.
So you're saying add it to this list of,
And right now, all that I see that it says is say less, and that's very vague. But photosensitivity is a different neurological disorder. Probably tell us more about that. Excuse me, Congress. But and my only concern is we don't want to cause an issue when we can avoid it right now. Thank you.
we do have something on page 8, thank you, that says to regulate signs so as not to interfere or obstruct the vision of or distract motorists, bicycles, or pedestrians. So could argue that it's under there, maybe not as clear as you said it though, you know.
Well, most people don't realize there's photophobia, so that causes neurological disorders. So I would hate to see somebody get an epileptic attack driving up the street and crashing into the bridge. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Any other citizen comments? Yes, Deborah.
Becky Knoll, 115 Causeway, same address, the same. Are these going to apply to our sign out here out front? These regulations?
Should apply to every sign in the city, depending on the zoning.
Okay, so my concerns are that if you read, there's quite a number, and as Mr. Riley said, we're a residential community, we're not US 19. So I'm looking at page 7, 7, 8. You look at these and it's number 5, maintain and enhance the scenic beauty of the aesthetic environment and the city's ability to attract sources of economic development and growth. That concerns me. Are we going to be putting advertising on our sign out there? And then number 7, minimize the possible adverse effect of signs on nearby public and private property. You have a number of houses here that border the pond and behind the pond. And so I think we need to take a good look at how long that sign's going to be on at night, if we're going to allow it to flash messages, because that definitely will impact property values. It will impact people's ability to sleep, because you're going to have a sign flashing in your we're going to have it flashing in our family room window all night long, and I don't believe that will improve my property values. I don't believe that the people who live behind the pond, in fact, I know they won't because I've talked to them, their front windows face that. And that, even the street lights reflect on the pond, all the way across the pond. I would encourage you all to come over and look at that, because the street lights reflect across that pond pretty brightly. So there's, and if you look at page 8, preclude signs from conflicting with the principal permitted use of the lots and adjoining lots. Well, my permitted use is for residential. So I would believe that would conflict with that. I think that we really need to think about this and put some things in here, because we're going to have digital signs on Gulf Boulevard, in front of the motel, in front of the beach club. And certainly the condos will, once they go up in front of the motel and the beach club, the condos will come up there because we allow short-term rentals and we'll be advertising there. So I would like to strongly suggest that you look at how you're going to regulate digital signs.
I want to refer to the city attorney if you wish to comment on any of this. I mean, again, citizens are raising issues here. I know we were hoping to move this to a vote tonight, but we want an ordinance that's in good shape here. This is legislative intent that she was looking for, so it override. The legislative intent is kind of the idea behind the governing principles. That's what we're trying to shoot for, okay? It doesn't mean you're gonna hit everyone perfectly, but Mr. Riley, I'm gonna have you address this because you're our city attorney, so I'm not gonna speak on the legality of it.
I'll address it by saying that this list of things is what, or as he said, is a specific legislative intent to explain the basis for the regulation that follows. So this is the predicate for other things and saying what is important within this community. A lot of the several of the things that you highlighted, could it be handled slightly differently? Of course it could. I will say what has been said already several times, that city council and I and city manager have spent a year on this, and there have been a lot of things that were brought up in work sessions and elsewhere that were debated, and this current ordinance that you have in front of you was what the result is, and if there's further things that the council feels strongly enough to revisit and before you approve it, then the thing to do is not go forward. Personally, I think that's a mistake for a couple reasons. Once it's passed, there's always an opportunity to amend it at a later date if necessary. Part of the reason to try and get this done now is because there is an election that will be coming up, and pretty soon it will be election season, and part of the object of doing this was to address how the political signs would be handled, and if the city council goes another month or two without passing the ordinance, then you're back in the quandary of how do you handle signs during the political season. So I'm not diminishing in any way, shape, or form the comments you're making, but I'm saying this, yet if you read through that very lengthy list of things, all those are oriented towards going to court at a later date and saying, Judge, we made every reasonable effort we possibly could to state what was important for our community and why we created these standards that we did in order to make sure that the aesthetic value of our community is intact. That's what it's for. And again, you could artfully state it a different way, but you can always do that. And I would encourage the city council you're running out of time, in my opinion, with respect to this, because you really need something in place with respect to the political season. And I'm the first one. I want the legal standard to be as absolutely clear as it possibly can be. And there's, to be quite honest with you, there's always a way to make it clarify things, but this is a year's worth of effort to get to this point. So that's my response.
Well, I want to just add two things that are back right after you, after me, President Carroll. Okay. Two things. I agree with Fred Riley regarding this political season coming up. None of the council members did this, but we had a gentleman in this town ran banners that filled his roof. You couldn't see him from the waterways, okay, for a presidential candidate. One wasn't enough. The guy put up 3 of them, okay, I think. I never saw all 3, but I was told he had 3 of them. It's an eyesore, and you know what? It happened to be my guy that he was advertising for. It doesn't matter if it's my guy or the next guy. It just, that's not what the city is looking for. We don't want to stop the First Amendment right to stick a sign out saying, vote for President Smith, but we want to say, you're not going to put a banner the size of your roof. I mean, that kills everyone's value. Let me say this about this sign outside here, okay? As you look at this council here, if you start from Robin Anki, Frank Banker, and myself voted no on that sign, people over here are going to vote yes. That's, right now, unimportant. The sign passed through a democratic process. We had a lot of debate, and it was a good debate. It really was, okay? 4-3 it passed. But we were told, okay, and even being in the minority that we lost, that sign's not gonna flash, and that sign's not gonna be on all night, and it's not gonna be an eyesore. And I'm telling you, if it becomes an eyesore and that starts happening, okay, you know how to reach me, okay? I'll bring that motion. I have the right to bring that motion. I will not let that happen in this city, okay? And hopefully we'll get 4 votes and we'll stop that, okay? That is not what that sign is supposed to be. This is not a car wash. It's not a strip club. We're not gonna have that in this city, okay? It's supposed to blink on and off. And I don't know who is driving Gulf Boulevard and Causeway Boulevard at 2 in the morning that needs to know what our next council meeting is, okay? They can wait till the next day. As far as I'm concerned, that sign should go off at a reasonable hour, 9 or 10 o'clock. That's my
I would
opinion.
say 8 or 9.
It may be fine, that's fine.
Most of the people in this town are retired.
I agree.
But the traffic is minimal there. But so I guess my sarcastic comment is, I could put a political sign in my front yard that followed these that was digital. Because there's one across the street from me.
I'll
I'm
only, if it's
just throwing it out
up
there.
to, I'm the legal opinion will come from the town attorney, not from
Be
me.
careful what you institute, because
This was what I believe said opening tomorrow. Yes?
Councilmember Gunn?
Glenn Gunn? Wait, Leslie Natero was next, and then Glenn Gunn, okay?
I want to point out,
Leslie to the mic.
page 17, section 86.5, exemptions. This chapter shall not apply to subsection C, signs for the benefit of the citizens as authorized by the city manager, city council, or other government authority having jurisdiction in the state. So effectively, this chapter does not apply to the street, the sign out in front of the community center. See that?
I see it.
Last paragraph on page 17.
Well, there's another constitutional issue if you want to argue it. We may never get this done. I mean, you know, we're in a residential, this is what we're talking about, okay? Ms. Molly, you're 100% correct. You're in the same neighborhood, you face each other. Why can't you have a digital sign? Why can't it be the same size? Why are we exempting ourselves? I mean, okay.
Are we becoming a city if we say that?
Pretty much, yes, that's what we're becoming. So, and we can't. There's your constitutional challenge. Because it's one thing for me to say, or you to say, Frank, on your street, I want a digital sign, and we could say, well, wait a minute, you know, nobody else has one here. She's directly opposite this. She's in the same situation, other than she's not a government entity, but we're exempting ourselves. Now, government entities sometimes exempt themselves, so, you know, this is the problem with sign ordinances. We could do this forever. I don't know what to say anymore. I really don't. I mean,
I do love to pull my hair out.
You got a lot of hair. Glenn Gunn, and then back to council up here. Glenn Gunn?
Yes, thank you. I agree with Frank Banker to begin with. I think this whole thing, the pendulum has swung too far in the opposite direction. And this whole sign thing this ordinance change has taken on a life of its own. I think it's absurdly long and it's overly restrictive in what we're trying to accomplish here. As I brought up at the work session here, I think the biggest issue we're going to run into is electronic signs and how they relate to commercial businesses. And I think we've missed the mark on this, and this ordinance is incomplete and it's not ready to go to print. Yeah, it's taken a year to get where we are, but I think you're going to try to push this through and then kick the most meaty portion of this thing down the road, and it's going to be another year or two before those questions are answered. And surprisingly, the biggest sign issue that's garnered the residential pushback is the electronic sign, and yet that's not included in the sign ordinance. To address some of the concerns of Debbie and Roger Long, ever since we started talking about this electronic sign, we've been trying to state that we look at the best practices for the implementation of electronic signs and what other municipalities have done. But everybody seems to keep latching on to this commercial version, and as Mayor Lonzo puts it, the car wash or movie theater or whatever, and that's not the case. Several times we've talked about the standards we want to use to implement this sign, and never once has anybody come in to kind of review those things to allay their fears. I think it's incumbent upon this city to set the bar for how you implement electronic signs. And we need to take the high road on this and set the example for the commercial businesses and absolutely avoid the flashing signs and strobe-induced epileptic fits. And as a helicopter pilot, I can speak to that all day long. But we need to be the exemplary person in the road, on the high road of this thing. And we are not there, we are not ready for this. So I'm totally opposed to this thing right now. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Gunn. Council members? Anything else?
So I will, I'd like to address Mr. Gunn's comments. Originally, or the last time last conversation we had about this was that this was geared primarily towards changes for residences. And we would have to come back and append this at a later date. And I thought that the council committed to continue working on this immediately. So whether we pass this now or we hold off until we finish the commercial version, I don't have a problem with what we have in front of us. I agree, though, that it is incomplete.
And I believe your recollection is correct, because I recall the same thing. And I think Mr. Gunn did bring this up, Frank, I got next, about the digital sign, and that we need to put work in on that. And here's my problem, okay? Right now, we have really no residential sign, or we have an ordinance, but we're not enforcing it, which is a free-for-all. And luckily, the citizens have been most understanding, respectful, and good. I mean, even without an ordinance, I don't see any eyesores around the city. So people are self-regulating and they're doing a good job, okay? And I applaud the citizens for that. I remember before I ever sought office, sitting in that audience and listening to our then, not Fred Riley, our then city attorney, talk about passing an incomplete ordinance, and I almost fell off my chair, going, you can't do that, and they did it anyway. I don't think they ever fixed it. And I'm hearing stuff tonight, and I'm seeing stuff that, even though you've read through this a million times, you see it, and stuff keeps getting pointed out. It's very big, it's a very big ordinance. It's not ready right now. But here's our problem. We can table it, or we can vote it down. We gotta keep working on it, and we are going to run out of time, because, and then all the political candidates hopefully will regulate themselves, or we'll get people putting up banners that are the size of the roof. I'm not sure what we'll wind up with. So before, we've debated this. If there's no other comments, actually, Dave, you have the last word. Is that the last word, or does anybody else want to speak after Dave?
I have no other comments.
Okay, Frank, do you want to say something, or then we'll give Dave another opportunity if anyone. Here's what we're going to do. Frank wants to say something, rest of the council, and Dave ultimately will get to you last if you want to say anything more.
Just like Mr. Gunn says, I don't think it's ready to pass the muster yet. These citizens have brought up some great comments. I remember there was a bill passed years ago that the Speaker of the House back then said, you got to pass the bill to see how good it is.
I remember that.
Right? And I'm still waiting to see how good it is. I just think it should be tabled.
Are you making a motion to table?
I'm making a motion to table.
We have a second on a motion to table. No second, that motion fails. Any other council comments?
I'm with Dave here. From what I was understanding, the same thing he said, that we were kind of passing this from a residential, and then the commercial aspect would come later. But I do agree there's a slippery slope, because we very easily, if we wanted to, could take advantage with this digital sign outside and use it as Times Square if we decided to, and nothing in this would stop us. So that's going to be a checks and balance on us. But I think that what we have so far is good, but we definitely do further work from the commercial and the digital sign out front.
I'm going to agree with You know, I wanted to move this thing forward if we could, for the reasons that Fred Riley gave. I think those are all valid reasons and can benefit this community. And at the risk, and I hope this doesn't happen, that somebody goes hog wild, I don't think this is ready for prime time still. There's a couple of things that have just been pointed out tonight that weren't totally apparent. And you can blame us. I mean, it is a long ordinance. I've read through it a number of times, but you just miss stuff. And there's a lot. So this thing may not pass tonight, which will get us back to the drawing board. And if it doesn't pass tonight, I'm going to ask them to stick it right back on the work session. We're going to keep working on this until it kills us. But you know, we're going to try. We still have a chance. We have December and January. We can come along in January, so we still cover the season if we can get through this council side. I think we get through the next work session with it. But there's a lot here still.
One more thing.
Yes.
Fred, what do you recommend based on all these comments? Sorry to put you on the spot, but I appreciate your guidance.
Vice Mayor Gaddis summed up and what I thought y'all had decided at the last workshop was the digital sign component would be something we would work on immediately. If I don't necessarily agree with the various comments, but I again say in drafting this, there's a lot of things I didn't change at all because that wasn't the tone of the discussion that the city council had. So the things that were made, I'll seize on, for example purposes, what John Hansick said. There's no grand design on anybody's part to violate constitutional rights and with the sign placement. I know conclusively those were standards that existed prior to this, which is why they weren't changed. Nobody raised an issue about changing them. And the city council, in addressing this in as many sessions as it's been addressed, did so in a good faith manner to try and work through all the different debate topics that there were. If y'all are not ready to pass it, then don't pass it, and we'll go back to the drawing board. But I will say the digital sign thing will introduce a whole new element into the discussion, and my feeling is you will not be able to pass a sign ordinance that includes the digital element if you're trying to get this done before the election season begins. With one caveat, unless you have special meetings, and you can do it that way if you so choose. But that's I would suggest if you're not ready, if people are not ready to go forward with it, then I've highlighted the various things that were discussed tonight. I will do red line changes to those things, and y'all can address it at a workshop in the very near future. And hopefully these types of issues can be addressed. But I don't like passing something that somebody has endless questions about. But I will tell you, this is a very, I've said this all along, this stuff is a quagmire because of the various ways that the courts have handled it. And you can go through and look for things to cite as a basis for a challenge, and you can do that with any law. That's even more accessible with something like this. So that's my thoughts on it.
So if we pass this and the plan is to go back and do the digital aspect, would that be an amendment to it?
You would add
Maybe a
another
separate-
whole section that addressed digital signs. This is chapter 86. You would add certainly several provisions that are specific to digital signs.
And we would go through the two, pass first time publication, pass second time, and then it becomes ordinance change.
Well, I'm wondering if just for feasibility and to make it more simple, trying to pass this one before the political with a big old promise and put it on the work session right now to start the digital aspect and get that passed as soon as possible. Because I have a feeling that what's going to happen is we're going to go back to work section, we're going to work out all these. It's going to come up for the first reading, someone's going to find something else, and then we're going to work on those, and we're never going to get this done. So should we just focus on this and pass this and then put a separate provision for digital signs only and work on that and get that done.
You know, the digital sign is the 500-pound gorilla now. You know, that thing has caused a problem. This thing would be ready to go. And here's my problem. I hear exactly what the malls say, and I respect everything they say. And the people that aren't even here, that live across the pond on another block, that are gonna have to look at Las Vegas, you know, south here. I would vote for this, but I want to hear the city manager, who's going to control this sign, speak into that mic and tell me that this thing's not going to blink. This thing's, I mean, you got to regulate the temperature of it. I get it. It's the first night. You might not have it perfect and everything. But when that thing goes on, if that's lighted, I'm going to go by their house, and if it's lighting up their front room, then it's no good. We're going to turn it off. I mean, and if I have to call a special council meeting, we'll do that. I mean, I want an assurance. I want these folks to walk out that, we're not going to be flashing it, we're not going to be blinking it, it's not going to be open all night, it's not the diner. What can we do to assure them? Because I'll vote for it. It goes against everything I believe in to vote for incomplete legislation. But we got to get this residential aspect done before somebody puts up another banner on their house. So, city manager, are you ready to commit to that, or can you commit to that? That we can allay their fears, at least until we get around to this. Because I agree, Fred Riley, this isn't going to be a one-session topic to go through digital. It's a lot.
Well, Mayor, we're going to control the timing of it, and that's why it hasn't come on yet. We're getting some sensors put on it. When you say flashing, it's not going to do this. It is going to have scrolling, which you would change anyway, that's normal. And we're not anticipating it's going to stay on all night. And
So you're not anticipating you are?
no, we're not.
You're not? Okay.
And
When will you turn it off?
well, we were figuring somewhere around 10 or 11 o'clock, because that's when our
How about
power
9?
is, But in any case, we'll resolve that issue. The other thing, the light throw that everybody keeps talking about, we did a light meter study and did all that, and the street light over there puts more light on the mall's home than this sign's gonna put on their home, or anybody across the pond. And we'll continue to do those studies once the light is fully operational. But at this point in time, we've got a couple things we've got to add to it to be able to control it. It's not going to have advertising on it. Well, I guess you could say it is going to have advertising, because it's going to advertise that there's a city council meeting, or there's a Christmas tree lighting, or something like that. But it's not meant to be commercial. It's mainly to put out, give the residents city information. And that's what it's for. And that was always the intent.
Patty Gentry for Glenn Gunn. Glenn Gunn?
Yeah, I was going to say, Mayor, you're reacting in the same thing, and I'm sure you haven't been through the list of best practices for the implementation of the sign. We've addressed this at a meeting before, and Kyle and the city manager have that, and that's what's going to be used to guide us in the implementation and the programming of the sign. And I would recommend that all the council members get a hold of a copy of that and take a look at it, because I think it'll answer a lot of the questions and allay a lot of the fears that we seem to have on this thing, because a lot of these things have been addressed by other municipalities and bad actors out there who did it wrong. And like I say, I think it's incumbent upon us to take the high road in this thing and do it right. If we want to do this sign ordinance, let's touch it one time and do it right the first time, and not keep parsing this thing out and kicking the can down the road. If we're going to do it, let's make it one smooth continuum. Thanks, that's all I got.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to try and bring this to a conclusion. We're coming up at 8:30 here. Any other council comments? And I'll give Dave the last word if no one else. No one else, Dave?
I have no other comments.
Okay, I'm going to call the question then. So up for consideration, first reading of ordinance 21-02, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Bel Air Beach, Florida, providing for the amendment of Chapter 86 signs of the City Code of Ordinances, providing for incorporation of recitals, providing for the amendment of Chapter 86 signs of the City Code of Ordinances, providing for a copy to be kept on file, providing for severability, providing for the repeal of all ordinances in conflict herewith, and providing for an effective date. A yes vote gets this through and moves it on to the second reading. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Bankert,
No.
Councilmember Gunn,
Nay.
Councilmember Notaro,
Aye.
Councilmember Swope,
Aye.
Councilmember Aki,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Gaddis,
Aye.
Mayor Manzo.
Aye. So first reading, it's going to pass 5-2. Madam Clerk, you'll advertise this, please, and bring it back to us on the next work session, please. I've heard it, and Glenn Gunn's correct. We need to have a discussion on digital. Let's get the ball rolling, even though we may not finish it that night, but let's get the ball rolling on digital.
I believe that's all commercial.
All commercial?
Yes.
Okay. Well, it's going to be all digital, too. I mean, I don't even remember anymore whether digital's covered, right? Can a homeowner stick digital in their house? And I don't know, so let's find out. And if there's any other revisions, I mean, something's come up here tonight that I'm not that thrilled with about exemption. So let's see where this goes. All right, that concludes number 10. It's 8:30. Does anyone need a break?
Yes,
Yes.
and I also want to go ahead and announce that I won't be coming back after break. I cannot come back after break this evening.
Okay, so let the record reflect Rita Swope will be leaving at 8:31. Council, do we have agreement? Hang on before you leave, Rita. Is everyone in favor of taking about a 10-minute break? Aye, everyone? Aye, there's no opposed. 8:31, come back at 8:40, let's say 8:45. Okay, we'll actually take a couple extra minutes, and note the record, 8:31, Rita Swope has left the meeting. Okay, good evening again, everyone. It's 8:49, we're back on the record. And next item up is item 11, consideration of ordinance 21-10, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Delaware Beach, Florida, providing for amendments to Chapter 30, Marine Structures, Activities, and Facilities, Section 30-2, Section 30-52, Section 30-53F and H, Section 30-144-2, Section 30-185, and Section 30-191D of the City Code of Ordinances, providing for incorporation of recitals, providing for approval of an amendment to Section 30-2, Section 30-52, Section 30-53F and H, Section 30-144-2, Section 30-185, and Section 30-191D of the City Code of Ordinances, providing for a copy to be kept on file, providing for severability, providing for the repeal of all ordinances in conflict herewith, and providing for an effective date. I'll entertain a motion. Anyone? So moved by Dave Gaddis. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Robin Aki. Go to Dave Gaddis.
I will defer to the city manager on this one.
Glenn Reeves.
Mayor and council, some things that we've added just to highlight, the electric bicycles, which now we can restrict on the beach. That's been added. Vice Mayor Gaddis had asked for some additional stuff for the docks and wharves. We've added that. We also added the time frame of 180 days, 90 days, and 180 days for various things such as failing to keep a boat in the marina, and updating your comments from the last work session. So I think this is ready to move forward unless there's some other comments.
You know there will be. I'm going to direct one to Fred Riley. I know Fred loves this kind of stuff. Because, see, Fred, here's the problem. I was watching the World Series last night, I fell asleep, and I woke up at 3 o'clock, and you know what I was thinking about? Does the state preempt any of this stuff with boats? Honest to God, right? So I'm looking, and there's a state ordinance, because apparently it's all over the place with how much a local city can do, not just in Florida, but even around the country, okay? So here we go with another can of worms to open up. There is a state ordinance that speaks to this, and I can tell you what it is. I actually have it on my phone if you want me to pull it up. But I guess the question is I know you've done the research on this thing. We don't have to open this up like a constitutional discussion, but are you comfortable, not that it's bulletproof, but are you comfortable that we're okay in taking the step that we're going to take? I'm sure the answer is yes, but I just want to pose that question to you, particularly since I saw this state statute. Because it's not clear in the state statute.
At 3 o'clock in the morning, you should have been considering how could Atlanta blow a 4-1 lead in the first inning. And that's, should have really been your question, but this is based on section 316.206551, and it has the definition, and I'm comfortable with it because I'm typically going to be comfortable when the state law gives you a basis to regulate something. And that is what you're doing, is you have the authority from the legislature to implement this if you feel it is an appropriate measure for your community.
And I think the key was that it has to be really livable. That's what they were really looking for. You know, if somebody was just fishing, let's say, for a few days, that's not what they're looking for. These are boats that are considered where you're really, you know, we have some. They're out there. People are living on them, and it's a, you know, as they call it, it's a cheap way to enjoy the nice cities, and it's a lot of fun. I don't have a waterfront property, so I have no dog in the fight. But you know, when somebody parks their boat outside your, you know, $2 million house, it's not funny anymore. So that's what this is all about, right?
Yeah, it's within the city's jurisdiction, and that you have a basis to regulate things within your jurisdiction. I think this is sound.
Any other city council comments?
I do. Page 4. Who's going to determine whether these boats are wrecked or junk? I mean, if it's wrecked, it's going to have damage or whatever like that, but who's going to determine the word junk?
Well, that would, Lynn and I were talking about that briefly related to something else, but the code officer of the city has to have a code provision to enforce, and then they have to be enforcing the code provision in a good faith manner. So if there is something, the rule of thumb that I would expect the code officer is going to apply is if there is something that presents a life safety issue, then it basically becomes exigent circumstances and some action needs to be taken. If it's something that is you know, junk or dilapidated or whatever infirmity it has, that could be a life safety issue, but often would probably be more of an aesthetic issue.
Yeah, and on page 6, like disrepair, we're talking about docks, wharf structures, dangerous structures creating a reasonable risk of bodily injury. Who's going to get on these decks? They're private property. They say, hey, this needs to be repaired.
In writing that, I looked at several different municipalities, and this language came from Clearwater, who addressed it, and they have the same issue y'all have, which is they have a lot of waterfront properties. The change I made that came up in the workshop was it initially said any dock, wharf, pile, or etc., or etc. We took out etc. and put in or structure, so there was a specific thing. I'm not partial to it, etc., although that's what the Clearwater ordinance says. How would you enforce this? The code officer is typically not going onto somebody's property, but if it's in a structure that's on the water, then you know it's a dilapidated, dangerous structure, and you can ride in a boat by it and see that's what it is. Then I think the code officer has a basis for bringing a case based on what they can clearly see.
Yeah, well, my question is, if it's falling into the water, then it's beyond this repair. But if it looks like it hasn't been painted, hasn't been stained, but the structure's still sound, or we don't know the structure's still sound, I mean, is that something that's disrepaired, or is that something that needs to be repaired? It might be not eye-soothing, but it's still private property.
Well, it is, but the language of it says, falls into a state of disrepair and becomes a dangerous structure, creating an unreasonable risk of bodily injury to any person who may walk upon thereon. If you can see, there's boards missing and
Well, that's a whole different, boards missing and boards ready to break are two different things, but you can't tell if board's ready to break until you probably step on it.
Well, that's why I will go back to the code officer should be in good faith making a assessment of what's problematic. And if it's a significant risk, unreasonable risk of bodily injury, then they have the basis to bring the case. If there's a minor thing that's wrong, then they really shouldn't be bringing the case. But that's, in enforcement, you have to have some degree of discretion, and then when it goes to a hearing, you have to present the basis for why there's a violation, and the magistrate is the one that ultimately decides whether they presented sufficient evidence or not to justify there being a violation.
Okay, and lastly, on page 7, we want occupancy in these slips for within 180 days, if I'm correct?
Yes.
So is this opening the door by telling, because I guess about 50% of us live here full-time and 50% don't, so if you don't use your house in 180 days and I want to buy it, does this open the door saying, hey, you gotta put it up for sale?
It's only for the marina boats.
Oh, I understand. I understand that, but I mean, the reason of this is because I want to get my boat in. I want to buy property here. Is this open Pandora's box? I mean,
Well, at the workshop, the city council actually spent, I would say, a half an hour talking about what the appropriate times would be, and this is what the council came up with.
Just as a point, I drove by there the other day just to see how many, I think there was only one slip that was vacant. So everybody pretty much has a boat there. This was for the person who's basically parking it, saying, and Frank, I know you tried to come in on this last one, and it's a shame because we did talk about all this stuff, but it's not your fault because for whatever reason, that phone connection, it was horrendous, it didn't work, but Glenn Gunn's as clear as a bell tonight, so I don't know.
can I just ask, is Glenn Gunn like on a Zoom call or is he just on a regular?
FaceTime.
Oh, FaceTime?
On a phone.
Yeah,
Based on the phone.
maybe I should try that method.
Yeah, but I mean, we did go around and around on this, and it was, we were trying to do is not somebody like, particularly now, I just heard of, I was talking to somebody, I'm gonna keep that person anonymous, that they were saying it could take months to get a part for a car, because there's none in the country. Same thing with these boats, I think Dave was saying there was like shortage of parts on some of them, so we don't want to penalize the guy who really has a repair that's taken too long. What we want is, what the whole intent behind this was, the guy who buys the boat slip and doesn't even own a boat, and says, I'm gonna get one in 6 years, and meanwhile, we got 40 people who really would love to have it, so. That was the whole intent, it wasn't to try and, and I think there's a thing where they can, if they're going on a 200-day cruise, they talk to the city manager, and he best be reasonable. We expect that, we had this discussion. I mean, if you're fortunate enough to go on a 200-day cruise, we're not gonna penalize you for that, but, if you just are playing games, that's what this intent was, to get those people off that slip.
I just think it's government's far reaching into things they shouldn't be reaching into. But it's my opinion.
Councilmember Branker, just to clarify something, as an example with the dock, you heard a complaint about a dock tonight. That resident allowed us to go onto his property to look at this dock. It's in disrepair, and we have a code hearing on it already scheduled for this month, because we've kept talking to the, the fiduciary for the owner, and we weren't getting anywhere with them, so we're going to take it to the magistrate, because the dock is in bad shape.
He explained that the dock was falling in the water too.
No, it's not falling in the water,
I think that's what he was saying.
it's got a lot of loose boards, and it appears to be, the cross members underneath it appear to be, pretty much eaten up. And I personally talked to the fiduciary for the homeowner and told her, I said, if you're not gonna rebuild the dock, then just remove the dock. And, she gave me the runaround about it. And so we're just gonna take it to the magistrate. And we went, I went out with the vice mayor, 6 months ago maybe? And we went out on the water and we picked out people with seawalls or docks that were damaged and this, that, and the other. And we stopped by and gave them notices, and last month, I think it was, Danny had 16 of the 17 notices for the docks. It was all taken care of. So it's just a matter of education.
I've been contacted by people with docks. I've gone out to their house, looked at them, and they said, they've had courtesy calls by the code enforcement that, but the docks aren't used by anybody but them. So I would not want to dabble into their personal business.
It's okay until it does fall in the water, and then it's everyone's problem. And that's what we're trying to prevent.
Yeah, but what point does it fall into the water?
Well, let me put it this way, there was just a normal storm, wasn't a tropical storm, and I happened to be home, this was several years ago, and my son, I was carrying him, he's like, Mommy, what's that? I look out and there's literally an entire dock floating behind my house, went under the little tiny 20-second bridge, floated, and then got jammed under somebody else's dock. Granted, obviously a boater's not gonna miss that, but it probably did damage to the other dock, a boat, so stuff like that. Dave can tell you, they wash up by his house, you see, after a big storm, you see pieces of docks that have fallen off of the boards, they can ruin our docks, they can ruin a boat going by, so it is a hazard. And I mean, I've reported to Lynn some docks that I've seen where the boards are actually in the water, just waiting for, right, now, if it hasn't been painted or stained, that's not a code violation, okay? Because you could say the same thing about somebody's house that hasn't been painted. But it's about the ones that are obviously in disrepair, not the ones that you have to go up and look at every single nail to see if it's, at the right, depth. I'm talking about the ones that a nice gust of wind is going to start dislodging boards and then it becomes a problem. So not the nitpicky, let's look at everybody's and, I don't like the color of that one, but I'm talking about safety.
To make it clear, if a code officer goes beyond the front of your house, your sidewalk, or in this case, beyond that water, anything they find is going to be inadmissible. So, and if I ever find out that a code officer goes on property uninvited, we're going to have a special council meeting to deal with that. That is an illegal search, and I will not tolerate it, and I would hope that no one else on this council will either. So you're not going to find a loose board, okay? But when I'm hearing that pieces of dock are stuck underneath yours, that one we should be able to catch. And that one, I think, I was telling the young gentleman, about the Supreme Court case, pornography, we know it when we see it, okay? We know one, we'll tell you if there's a dock that's fallen down. But if we start getting to a fine point that, I kind of noticed you got a screw that's too high, that, hey, knock it off, okay? That's their private property. But when the railings are falling down, the dock is half in the water, and it's all rotted out, and it's going to be a hazard in a couple of wind gusts, then we have an issue. I mean, these things should stick, okay?
That's the only thing that we're looking at. We're not, as an example, there's a house right across the bridge on 22nd Street. Actually Dave probably saw it because he lives close by there. Their whole lift fell into the water, and you could see it. And we had a complaint about it from someone across the water the other way, and I mean, you can stand on the bridge and see it. So if we get a complaint, we contact the homeowner or the renter or whoever's there. In most cases, they'll take you back there. and show it to you. It's, you know, the only other way we would find out if there isn't a complaint, if a house goes up for sale, we do a code and lien search to see if there's any violations, and the homeowner gives us permission to go on that property. And,
That's an option that they don't have. I mean, the lien search is usually mandated. The inspection is a courtesy. We'll do it for you if you want it. It's not required.
right, but the seawall that fell in, if we wouldn't have done that and notified the owner that that seawall was gonna fall, who knows what would have happened? But, you know, we notified the owner that they needed to repair that. And they had a contractor lined up to do it, but then we had 3 or 4 days of rain and the whole thing went in the water. But,
So we were right.
yeah.
And I mean, on that, that's what we're looking for. You know, I guess the point of this is, don't overreach. In fact, we said that when we were doing this. I remember that comment coming up specifically. This is a good ordinance as long as we're not overreaching. If we get, it's like every other ordinance, we start getting silly on it, which I don't think we will, you know, we should be fine. I mean, the one that's fallen in the water, we want dealt with before it falls in the water. It becomes a hazard then to navigation. Okay, any other council comments? We good with Glenn there, Patty?
He,
Not good with Glenn?
he has no questions.
No questions, okay. Citizens?
Jim Vanskoy, 7th Street. I just want to remind the council, and I know that you guys are talking about them in that area generally. I had sent the city manager, I got a complaint from a citizen over in that area where the council, majority of this council lives, where a bunch of someone's dog flew up under someone else's brand new dog, and they weren't worried about that. This was a doctor, and he was worried because someone had just got killed because they hit debris in the water. So I totally support inspecting without violating anybody's rights, but you know, when we think about somebody just got killed because of debris in the water, that's more something more to worry about than whether, you know, it's hitting the docks. So again, our citizens are supposed to be our #1 safety thing, and I think if the city takes it from that point of view, it's a safety issue opposed to hitting someone else's dog. I think we would be more safeguarded. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other citizen comments? Mr. Hansick, was that a comment or no? You're okay. Back to council. Last word, Dave, any? I'm sorry, yeah, Dave got us this motion.
Call the question.
Consideration of ordinance 21-10, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Bel Air Beach, Florida, providing for amendments to Chapter 30 Marine Structures, Activities, and Facilities, Section 30-2, Section 30-52, Section 30-53F and H, Section 30-144-2, Section 30-185, and Section 30-191D of the City Code of Ordinances, providing for incorporation of recitals, providing for approval of an amendment to Section 30-2, Section 30-. You meet that, please? Section 30-53F and H. Section 30-144-2, Section 30-185, and Section 30-191D of the City Code of Ordinances, providing for a copy to be kept on file, providing for severability, providing for the repeal of all ordinances in conflict herewith, and providing for effective date. This is the first reading. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Notero,
Aye.
Councilmember Aki,
Aye.
Councilmember Baker,
Aye.
Councilmember Gunn,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Gaddis,
Aye.
Mayor Manzo.
Aye, passes 6-0. It'll move to a second reading with advertising in between. Madam Clerk, please advertise. Item 12, authorization of the city manager to execute a purchase order for audio/video upgrades in the council chamber. Contract with Encore Broadcasting Solutions for microphones, speakers, and a new wiring configuration. Please, may I have a motion, somebody?
So moved.
Dave Gaddis, second.
Second.
Leslie Notaro, it's up for discussion. Dave,
I will refer to the city manager.
city manager?
Yes, Mayor and Council, we've done a lot of research on this. We have some new wiring. We've already put new wiring under the floor here. Kyle has kind of led this charge, and I'd like him to come up if you've got any questions. This is to upgrade the microphones, and to eventually get the audio-visual Zoom meetings in a cleaner situation.
Kyle, speak right into that microphone, because we won't be able to hear you with the present systems.
Kyle Riefler, Community Services Administrator, Mayor and Council. We started this, the first phase of last budget cycle, and we started wiring Cat 6 cables at 2 floor locations, sending some back to the network room and then some over here to the sound system room. And after getting the Vice Mayor's advice and working with Encore Broadcast Solutions, we came up with a plan to flip out, first and foremost, all the microphones except for actually this podium mic, because of, they thought this was the best solution that we had, because we're changing out the rest of the mics to these stick mics, which pick up a lot better for the purposes of you guys sitting in front of the microphone without people around you. But by changing out all the mics, rewiring the speaker wire, putting in 12 speakers throughout. Yeah. So it's 6 pairs, so 12 speakers, which the way this room is wired is the speakers are actually like an artificial, like they look like drop-down ceiling tiles, but they're speakers. So those are quite old at this point because they were original. And the Encore Broadcast Solutions, their take on it was after that amount of time, things just wear out. So that's why we're going to rewire, we're going to put new speakers in with the new microphones. And that should take care of all the audio issues that we do have in this room. And then at the same time, what we're doing from these new floor jacks is we're running everything through the Cat 6 cable as opposed to using some of these microphone wires that we do now. So hopefully that's going to clean everything up. Putting the city clerk over that floor jack over there, and then this podium being moved over there. So
That chair is
yeah, it's right in the center. And so then it'll get adapted through the Cat 6 cable, and it'll all come back into the sound room, which will be wired with the new microphones and speakers. And then at the same time, they're going to get a HD video signal that's going to be wired from the podium. That's going to be taken through Cat 6 cable all the way to each monitor location and the projector. So that in the future will allow us to upgrade our visual aspects of this room, if we decide to.
We have monitor vision capabilities of seeing people up at the dais here. I mean, we used to have monitors right in front of us, which were kind of nice. Now we really have to go down on the floor to see stuff.
Presently, we're going to keep the same monitoring system, so we'll be able, like say we do a Zoom call, what the idea is that the computer that's at this podium will be the main computer, so when someone comes up to speak, you'll see them. It'll be fed through all the monitors in the room so that you'll see who's talking at the same time. So right now, as far as a solution, I guess I don't know how easy it is for you to see the screen.
It's back there, you can see it, but it's,
it is something
nice if there was something, up here, around the circle or something that we all could, I mean, the best was when it was right in front of us, because you had it right here, and I can still be looking at this and listening to you, and, we can maintain eye contact and stuff, but,
Mind if I add something? Whenever we got the original quote, it was much higher, and it included replacing all of the stats in the room. And we kicked it back and said, no, let's just use what we've got. So, although we don't have a way to see somebody that's, say, in a Zoom meeting or a presentation, my thoughts initially were to hang a TV right there that we could just kind of glance up at, that everyone would share. But I think this phase allows everyone to be seen and will also give us the opportunity to do Zoom calls much better, much more efficiently. And I think that was our first priority, was just to make sure everyone could hear.
Let me ask you this, if we had video capability here, because there used to be monitors in front of each one of the seats here, I imagine that wiring is still in here. It may not be Cat 6, but why can't, and it shouldn't be hard to work through this, why can't we wind up, I mean, there's a big channel over here that nothing but pens and junk falls into. Why can't, even if we're setting up something as simple as a computer monitor, it doesn't have to be something sexy, but have something right in front of us, because we're going to have Zoom, and people are going to start sharing screens. I mean, we just had a lady come in here tonight and make a presentation. Let's say she made that presentation on Zoom. You know, I want her to be able to share the screen with us and also all see it. Now, it's okay if we're all in the middle here, but it may create some vision issues. If you have something right in front of you, everybody can see that. I'm just wondering, I'm not saying no to this, I think this is a great step forward, but to me, I look at this channel in front of us, which the audience can't see right now, but there's a big channel here, and we can, even if it's not pretty, even if we're just hardwiring some computer monitors and tying them into that station here, it seems to me that we could have video in front of us here, and would it be nice? I'd like to see the speakers clearly if we're particularly going to Zoom.
What you're saying with doing the Zoom call, then we would be using the iPads, so everybody
The iPads, yeah.
would have an iPad.
Okay.
So, yeah, so as long as you're doing a Zoom meeting and that presenter is piping it through, sharing the screen, then you guys will be able to see right in front of you.
I have one other question for you, probably Kyle, because we're taking the lead on this. I know it looks like we worked through the Hillsborough Schools contract and stuff. Have we, I don't know if Hillsborough actually bought any of this same equipment, but I hate to spend, $35,000 and find out, wow, they're like, these microphones are not as good. We went to Hillsborough and talked to them or seen their system in action.
I have not, but that's something we can do.
We did go to Bel Air, because they use the same,
Okay.
and they have strip speakers, and we had that discussion, and they felt that not the speakers, microphones, excuse me, they felt that the ones that they're proposing would be much better for us. And they've done all the work at Bel Air, and their system's pretty robust.
What's the warranty, guarantee, that type of stuff on this? Didn't say on this, that's all.
Most county contracts are of this type, there's some kind of warranty, and we have to find it exactly, but I would gather it's at least 12 months.
I mean, this is my feeling, and I would hope the council will join me on this. I'll pass this tonight, I'll vote yes for this, but I want the stipulation that we have at least a 12-month warranty on this. This is a $35,000 purchase, it's a major purchase for us. And Lynn, I mean, I would approve it as is with that stipulation, and if it's not, then please come back to us and don't go forward with it. That's me, that's what I'm saying. I need at least 4 other people to join me on, or 3 other people to join me on that.
Yeah, I'm looking real quick, so I would go along with that.
12, okay, that's standard in the industry, yeah. Everybody okay with that? I'm getting nods from everyone. Leslie? Yeah, you're good? Okay, so we've got the majority at this point. So, Lynn, I mean, that was my only concern, so we're good. Good job with this, and you can't get it in. How fast can we get it in?
Hopefully really quick.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
The tin cans and the wire are just starting to go. Let me see if there's any questions from the audience. Anyone? No? Okay. Anything back on council? Dave, any last words?
Call the question.
Got it. Okay, so this is item 12, authorization for the city manager to execute a purchase order for audio visual upgrades in the council chamber. They have to do a contract with Encore Broadcasting Solutions for microphone speakers and new wiring. The stipulation that this council has given you, Mr. Reeves, if this passes, is that it has at least a 12-month warranty. You'll check that. If it doesn't, you will not proceed with this if it passes, okay? Good with that? You're nodding yes. Okay. With that, I can take a voice vote on this. All in favor? Aye. Is anyone opposed? We now have 6 people left, so 6-0. Passes. Lynn, you go forward with it, please. And if there's a problem, let us know. Kyle, thank you. Item 13 is consideration of Resolution 2021-11, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Bel Air Beach, Florida, calling for a general election to be held on March 15, 2022 for the purpose of electing 3 City Council members and the mayor for 3 3-year terms to establish the qualifying date for persons seeking elective office for the 2022 municipal election, and establishing an effective date. This is to establish the 2022 municipal election qualifying period. Do I have a motion? Moved by Leslie Notaro, second.
Second.
Second by Robin Aki. Discussion starting with Leslie.
No comment?
Speaks for itself, right? Robin, anyone here? Citizens, any comments on this? Back to the council. Leslie, any last words? Okay, I feel like I have a firing squad. Any last words here? Consideration of Resolution 2021-11, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Bel Air Beach, Florida, calling for a general election to be held on March 15, 2022 for the purpose of electing three city council members and mayor for 3-year terms to establish a qualifying date for persons seeking elective office for the 2022 municipal election and establishing an effective date. A yes vote passes this. Let's do it. We have to do it by person, correct? It's a resolution? Yes. So, Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Councilmember Aki,
Aye.
Councilmember Baker,
Aye.
Councilmember Gunn,
Aye.
Councilmember Notaro,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Gaddis,
Aye.
Mayor Manzo.
Aye. Passes 6-0. Proceed with these dates. Item 14, consideration of Resolution 2021-12, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Bel Air Beach, Florida, providing for November 12, 2021 to be a paid vacation day for the employees of the City of Bel Air Beach, Florida, and establishing an effective date. This is for employee paid vacation day for COVID-19 service. Motion, please.
So moved.
Dave Gaddis, second.
Second.
Second by Robin Aki. Dave.
I will refer to the city manager.
City Manager.
Yes, we did discuss this at the work session, and what I mentioned is that, excuse me, that the city employees for the whole COVID all of them are vaccinated, and numerous cities and counties are given stipends actually, and days off for vacation. And I will say that our city staff, we didn't close one day during COVID ever. We've had city services every single day. And the staff came to work every day, and so the residents did not have any harm where some places closed their doors and things of that nature. And so I'm recommending as an incentive to the employees just to give them this day off.
You know, Lynn, I remember talking to you like when this thing just started. And I remember saying one thing, let's try and stay ahead of it because we have no idea what's coming. And you just said something which sets us apart from a lot of cities, and we're a little city, okay? Remember Glenn Gunn quote, there's condos that are bigger than us, okay, than our whole city, okay? And it's true, there's condos that have 10,000 people in it, but you didn't close one day, okay? And that is a testament to our employees. And I'm not about giving away free days and giving away rewards for showing up to work, but this was something extraordinary. I remember talking to you at one point saying, Lynn, we had no idea. We had no idea this was going to be like the plague and we'd have to close down sections of the city. We had no idea how bad this was going to be. Nobody knew, okay? And everybody came in. There was no vaccines at the time, and everybody came in a risky situation. It would have been easy for them to call in sick and just say, hey, forget it, I'm not coming in. I support this 100%.
Our employees,
Says a lot about our employees.
they stood up for it.
Yep. And this was, believe me, this was one, we were playing with death here. This wasn't, this wasn't a flu. This was hard. So, any other council comments?
Yeah, I have a problem with the COVID-19 part. I mean, I don't know if lot of private businesses are giving an extra day off. I don't have a problem by giving the employees an extra day off. I think they deserve it. I mean, especially these guys came in July during that tropical storm that was coming up and gave up their whole weekend. They were out there sandbagging. I would support wholeheartedly that any holiday falls on a Thursday, they automatically get Friday in the future. I think the whole staff's underpaid, to be honest with you. But the problem is I have is with COVID-19, right? Yeah, it wasn't a big scare and everything like that, but now, I don't know, are we gonna give them off when they have to get their third shot, their fourth shot, their fifth shot, their 88th shot? I don't know what a vaccine is anymore. I never got a polio booster shot, is what I'm saying. So, I'm all for giving the employees a day off. Give more days off, but I just don't like the wording of the COVID-19. And I admire our employees wholeheartedly. You, Lynn, Patty, everybody. I love it.
Lynn, I know we have the committee working on this, but I do remember being briefed on this when we went to the seminar in the summer up in Orlando. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong, can't we use for payment of this some of the money that we got from Washington for this relief? I think that, isn't that to be used for incentives and stuff like that? So this might be able to use.
You can do that, but our staff's so small, I wouldn't, the accounting nightmare that could create.
You got a CPA firm, they do that in 10 minutes.
You know, for the amount of money we're talking about, it's negligible, and because I've talked to other cities that are actually doing this. Oh yeah, I gotta do this, I gotta do that, I gotta have, and we're 6 people, small staff, and we're not intending to try to create a bigger issue with the American Rescue money. We'd like to focus it on infrastructure, and that's what we're going to discuss with the advisory committee. And I think it's negligible, really.
I just want it to be considered as an option to utilize that money. I mean, you know, there's 800 grand there, so you know, if we're looking at spending, we don't have to spend every last penny on the infrastructure. That's obviously where it's probably going to go, but you know, it's not a hard thing to come up with what the daily pay is for everybody.
Well, it's not so much that, but it's, as I understand it, and I've talked to a couple cities, the reporting of spending that money for what I'll call other things, that infrastructure or things of that nature, the reporting is going to be pretty extensive to what I understand. And we're not intending to hire a consultant to do it at this point. So, but a lot of cities are. They're going out and hiring consultants to monitor because of the reporting requirements.
Any other council comments? Dave, any I'm sorry, citizens? Back to council? Anything, Dave?
I like this. Let's vote for it.
Got it. Consideration of Resolution 2021-12, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Delaware Beach, Florida, providing for November 12th, 2021 to be a paid vacation day for employees of the City of Delaware Beach, Florida, and establishing an effective date, employee paid vacation day for COVID-19 service. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Councilmember Notaro?
Aye.
Councilmember Gunn?
Aye.
Councilmember Baker?
Aye.
Councilmember Aki?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Gaddis?
Aye.
Mayor Manzo?
Aye, passes 6-0. You, staff, and yourself and Patty with our compliments. Great job.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Item 15, authorization to execute an interlocal agreement between Pinellas County and NPDES MS4 co-permittees for Florida Department of Environmental Protection Annual Regulatory Program and Surveillance Fee. This is an interlocal agreement that covers years 2022 through 2026. Motion, please.
So moved.
Moved by Nestle Otero, second.
Second.
Second, Dave Gaddis. Leslie?
I will pass this back to Lynn.
Lynn Reeves?
Yeah, Mayor and Council, this is there's several co-permittees with the MPDS program in Pinellas County. We happen to be one of them, and this is a fee that they collect annually. Our contribution to this surveillance fee is $64.97 in 2021. So what I'm asking is for authorization for the mayor and city manager to execute this agreement.
Should we send it to the finance committee? Just playing with it, $64, huh? Okay, any other questions on the council? Citizens?
How much did we spend for the paper?
Let me see.
Fred Riley and the videographer who are making the money right now.
I spent more in review and
Yeah.
paper than we did what we're gonna have to pay.
Exactly. There's no citizen comments. Back to council. Leslie, any last words here?
Let's vote on it.
Okay. Authorization to execute, item 15, authorization to execute an interlocal agreement between Pinellas County and NPDES MS4 co-permittees for the Florida Department of Environmental Protection Annual Regulatory Program and Surveillance Fee. I believe we can do this with a voice vote. Right, Madam Clerk? Yes, we can. Everybody in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? 6-0, passes. Item 16, authorization to award a professional services contract for seawall and boat ramp design. This is for design and engineering services for seawall and boat ramp renovation. This is for 7th Street. Motion, please. Motion by Frank Bankert, second.
Second.
Dave Gaddis. Frank.
Long time coming.
It's more than 7th Street, just to
Yeah, I know.
clarify.
Okay.
7th to 16th.
It's 7th Street seawall and boat ramp, 16th Street seawall, and a short seawall out here along the circle where I'm sure all of you have been here to the water and you've seen the scouring, and we're going to prevent that washout.
So this is going to be the engineering contract?
The engineering.
And Lynn, I'm going to share this because I had a citizen ask me this, so you and I have already spoken on this, but I want to share, because June is the only person left in the audience, but they'll see it on the video. Give the citizens a rough timetable of the rebuilding of the 7th Street dock and this whole engineering project and what we're looking at over here.
Well, I would anticipate the engineering will take us 30 to 60 days to come back from Rube, and then we'll put it out. I'll come to the council and ask for authority to bid it, and we'll bid this probably all as one project. We've got funding for the seawall, and we've got funding for the boat ramp. So after we bid that, sometime after the first of the year.
And we have money for the dock also, so
Yes.
I want to allay the citizens' fears, because there was some real fear. There's people who launch boats there regularly, and they said, is the dock gone? I'm like, no, the dock is gone temporarily.
No, that's a separate project.
Right. But what you told me was that we could expect the dock probably around spring of 2022. That's a rough estimate. So the dock is coming back. It's coming back bigger and better than ever, hopefully, or at least nice and sturdy and everything else.
Right.
When we do this, there's some comments, from the citizens and stuff regarding tie poles and dock construction and stuff like that. So I just want to make sure that I know we're going to do it in front of the citizens. I just want to make sure that we highlight that, because we have some very experienced boaters in this area that use this, and they can add certainly some input as to how it should be designed and stuff. So they were explaining tie poles, and they were like, the old one was wrong, and I'm like, we got to talk when the engineers are here.
Right.
Okay. All right.
But that's
that's separate. This is just for the seawall and the ramp.
Seawall, ramp, and the seawall at 16th and out here.
Okay. Any citizen comments? Council?
This is going to change the look out there,
Yes.
correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's gonna improve that appearance, and it'll have a raised cap, and we'll kind of do some more landscaping behind it, but that's really a separate project.
Are people still going to be able to swim and bathe?
Oh,
over
yeah,
there and
yeah.
everything? Okay.
We're just trying to protect, because eventually, with the scouring that keeps happening, it's just gonna keep coming closer and closer. There's rock out there. We have a bad storm. That rock isn't preventing anything. The rock will still end up against it because it's a good protection for the seawall, but this will at least stop that scarring basically from the bridge apron that's down below to the walkover. That's where the biggest scarring is.
That was my only concern, that people will still be able to enjoy it, because I do see a lot of people fish over there, young, you know, a lot of
No,
great place for little
they'll
kids to
still be able to walk out on the beach and do whatever they do.
All right, I'm going to call the question if there's no other objections here. Authorization item 16 to award a professional services contract for seawall and boat ramp design. Again, the explanation is design and engineering services for seawall and boat ramp renovation. Yes vote moves this forward. We can do a voice vote. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? 6-0. Move forward, please, Lynn. That concludes our regular agenda. We now go into any unfinished business. Is there any? I'm hearing none. I move to the city attorney. This is numbered wrong. Okay, so city attorney is actually 18, city manager is 19, city clerk is 20, city council is 21. Item 17 is unfinished business. That's completed. Item 18, city attorney.
No report due to the late hour.
We've done a lot later than this. It's been a long one. City manager.
When you haven't had dinner yet, this is why.
Well, excuse me, Mayor and Council, I've got a few things. We're going to bring the buoy ordinance to have another discussion at the work session. The work session, the buoy ordinance.
Yes.
We've done some more research with the communities up and down the beach, and I'll have probably some more before the work session, which will be the 15th. It's normally planned. At your seat, I gave you the annual report that we prepare every year in November. Kind of highlights what the staff has done over the year. And as I mentioned earlier, I just wanted to reiterate that the staff, they've continued to provide services, and they work diligently to control costs, and where we could increase any revenues, they worked hard at doing that. And I think our fiscal year 2021 budget year, a lot of things have improved, in not only with infrastructure taxes, rentals, parking fees, a lot of those things have increased dramatically. So the staff's done a great job with that. And we got through the CRS verification visit, and that was a positive. We'll talk to the sheriff about the supplemental stuff.
Yes.
And we'll figure out something with that.
And I think I said it, but we're all in agreement with that, right, council?
Yeah, you budgeted.
Supplemental service, the supplemental sheriff services. Leslie, I know you weren't on council when we started that, but we have some option. We've set aside some money to use the sheriff on special occasions for specialized directed patrol, speeding, things like that. We don't announce it. City manager works it out, and surprise, surprise, you go 55 on the bridge, and it's a bad weekend. So,
The fastest cars I see are the ones that are out at 5 in the morning. That's whenever, if you're a runner, you're walking your dog, you're trying to cross the intersection, someone's going to get mowed down.
yeah, it seems like too, I mean, and again, I'm not going to give any hints, but, when we get to the weekends and stuff, we could hear it, particularly now that the windows are open, you can just hear them. They hit Beller Beach, and Indian Rocks is all lit up, and then it looks like we're asleep here because we're residential, they let it loose, and, and they're flying. But I will say that it looks like, that sign across the street, Beller Shore doesn't like, by the way, because they would have told it was coming in this. But they said, we like it though, because it's making people slow down, and I think it is making people slow down, so that's a good thing. But they fly still, up the other way, and it's a little scary and occasionally you will hear the sheriff racing after them, so chalk one up for the good.
Yeah, I think those radar signs do help to some degree. You're not going to stop everybody. I'll give you an example. Going down Gulf Boulevard last week, one day with the code guy, him and I went out and spent the afternoon together. in a city truck because I can't go in his car. Car goes out because we're not going to whatever speed he was wanting. Car goes out in the middle lane and passes us. But, you know, we didn't have a police car, so there was no way to go. But, you know, it happens, and you ain't gonna prevent it all. I just wanted to bring up, last month June made a comment about the stormwater pond over there, and I did contact the county, just to see what they do, because I know what they told me 2 or 3 years ago, and they pretty much told me the same thing. They have no intent of digging it out. They do a inspection quarterly, and I got them to provide me the last 2 inspections, and really what they're looking for is silt in the structure that's across the street. And they do remove that when they come for the inspection. But one thing additionally I asked them about is the fence. I said either fix it or get rid of it, because it's really not serving any purpose and it's rusted. Now, there would have to be something put along the structure, which is almost directly across, kind of at an angle across the street. It's the concrete barrier, the weir that the water flows into. But they are looking into that. So that's just to give you an update. They're not interested in digging it out. And I don't know if you talked to somebody specifically, but these were the stormwater people. So I just wanted to let you know that.
Thanks for checking up on that.
And that's all I have. Mike and I'll get together on the Board of Adjustment training. We did that last spring, so that's not a big deal.
And I had one thing I want you to just, I don't know whether it's even, it may not even be our issue, but at the 12th Street easement, the house next to it, which has had eternal construction, okay? Apparently, I heard a report, so it was told to me, so I didn't see it, I didn't get pictures, but apparently they were blocking our easement, pouring concrete at the house, and then we went by the other day, and there was cones in the street. Now, I don't know whether those are undergrounding cones or they're the remnants of the sidewalk cones, but there happened to be a bicyclist in the bicyclist lane, and that's where they put the cones in. So now this bicyclist had to come over into the traffic lane, which is now, as we're hearing, maybe a little narrower than it needs to be. It's a mess. And I'm like, if they're doing this unilaterally, that is a real problem. It goes back to the sheriff enforcement. Nobody should be blocking anything on Gulf Boulevard in our town or in Bel Air Shore, and that's a sheriff thing. But if they have permission or it's part of the undergrounding, I don't know. So I said, let me bring it up to you and just see what you
Well,
know about.
part of the work was undergrounding the last couple days of last week. And then one day they were pouring the apron to the driveway to the new home, which, you know, they've got to have some kind of safety traffic control, and they put the cones out there. There was no restriction to go into 12th Street. I mean, you could turn in there, but there was a cone before it and a cone after it.
I heard opposite, though. I heard that the cement vehicles or whatever, the cement mixer, whatever they were using, was blocking it. And of course, the person did not have their cell phone with them, and I did not get a picture of it. I don't know.
And that could have happened,
Okay.
but I'm saying it wasn't preventing, you know, maybe there was a concrete truck there, temporary, you know, dumping his load of concrete. Well, I don't know where he's gonna dump it unless he's in that.
I saw it, and it was a mess. Between the traffic, the way the traffic flows,
Right.
and that sign, that being in the way, and then they had construction, and the lane that everyone is supposed to now go into to go straight was blocked. Just, it was complete confusion.
Right. Well, that was when they were doing the drive. I don't think it's been a problem with the undergrounding people. They're off the street, and they're, you know, it's Spectrum who it is, shooting the undergrounding project on that side of the street to get rid of the crosswires.
That was the one thing I had. Anybody else? Any citizen questions for the city manager?
I wanted to go back on that double turn lane. That's something we really need to look into. I purposely tried to stay in that lane, coming here tonight, and you just can't do it. There's not enough room to make that left turn. I don't know what the fix is, but we're gonna have some bad pileups out there.
Yeah, I've talked to the county about a couple things already. It may be that they need to shape the turn a little better. It may be that their initial recommendation was to take that island out that's backed up so you can kind of slide over and get in that other lane. The other question that's been brought up is, it used to be when it was red left turn and there was no cars coming from the other way, it was blinking caution where you could make a left turn. Those are questions that I've posed to the county. I haven't got an answer yet.
I hope they work out whatever, problems we have, because the busy season is coming really soon, and, there's definitely some questions that have.
Part of it, I think, too, is it's new to people. That's a little bit of the struggle, I'm sure.
Another issue with that is, once you turn onto Causeway Boulevard, is there enough room for the guys in the right lane to merge into, if there are a whole bunch of people coming in the right lane to merge into the left lane, heading east, is there enough distance there?
Maybe two.
Did that make sense?
Maybe. It's going to require a lot of cooperation in an overly aggressive Pinellas County for this to work out.
And I'd say also my concern, because I've tried out that lane too, the new left lane, and the concern is when you're taking a left, the people come the opposite way taking a right are kind of used to going, so that may have to be a no right on red.
Well, they have a red light.
Right, but we all know those are yields, so a no right on red may have to be added there if we keep it.
But if we do that, and Glenn Gunn wants to speak, so I want to get to him, but if we do that, last year was the first year I live south of the bridge, Frank lives south of the bridge, Rita lives south of the bridge. We were getting constant traffic on the weekends on our side, which we used to never get that as they were going up to the light. Every weekend there was traffic. So if we make that no turn on red, we may push it back to Indian Rocks. I mean, the county really, it was, so if we go no red on red, it really, but I hear you, because now everybody's merging into the same piece of.
Well, and I think it's partially, like I said, there's some newness here, and even the county said, we've got to give it some time and see how it works out. And they're monitoring it and with their cameras, and there seems to be 2 green lights in the straight lane, and that's another question I'm asking, because it looks like guys are 2 there. It should, to me, just be 1, unless there's some reason for it.
I'm glad they studied this, it's great. Glenn Gunn has a question.
Yeah, I was just going to add my anecdotal feedback on that thing is, I used it exclusively for the last 3 weeks after it went in, and I've had absolutely no problems. It seemed like the people making the right turn lane coming north on Gulf Boulevard, you were fine, and I've had no problems merging. The traffic in the first lane seemed to be very cooperative, and I've always merged before I even got to the first street coming off of southbound on the causeway there. I've had no problems. Now the substantive feedback is, just like the city manager said, there's an extra green light there, people are confused by it. And the other thing I would add is, we probably need to validate the turn radius on that dashed line for the center lane. It seems like it's very right angle instead of a curve there, but I'm thinking maybe it has something to do with the turn radius for the large trucks that are turning off of Gulf Boulevard to access the causeway. I think the county looked at it, their engineering staff, and they bought into it, so they obviously have some standards for merging there, so I'm not quite sure that's an issue. Along with the city manager, I would say give it some time, because just like the sign says, hey, there's a new traffic pattern there and people aren't fully aware of it. I think the real acid test is going to come with the snowbird season and the spring break, so I think we really need to sit back and let us evaluate it a little bit more and see what happens, but it seems like the traffic seems to be moving fairly efficiently through there. And that needs to be the first step to be determined before we start taking out the island further to the north of the intersection and moving trees and that sort of thing. With respect to the speed signs, my question is we've got new speed signs to the south and we've got the one that comes off of the bridge. The question is, have we collected any speed data from those signs yet? Because we just had a citizen's complaint about excessive speed on the coming down the bridge there, and we probably need to pull the data and take a look and see what we're actually seeing there, as well as we've always had the anecdotal complaints on the southbound Gulf Boulevard there, so we probably need to take a look at that kind of stuff.
Right, the county will get, I just have to request it from them, and they did give it to us for the south one a couple of times, and we found that it actually slowed the traffic. And I'm thinking, you know, when I've been out on Gulf Boulevard and see people in front of you, for the most part, they're hitting their brakes and slowing down. So we'll get some data from that. The bridge, maybe a little.
I have two more points when you're done.
Yeah, I'm finished.
Go ahead, Glenn.
Yeah, we talked about the special enforcement we paid for to have the officers sitting at the bottom of the bridge there with their radar, and we didn't see anything significant there, and maybe it's time to put a speed box further up on the bridge and take a look at that stuff. So that's one thing. The second thing we talked about some of the lawn services and the big delivery trucks parking in the center turn lane there, and I would just advise caution there, make sure we truly understand the problem before we take action on it, because a consequence of that might be is if you insist on these large trailers and trucks pulling into private drives to service Bel Air Shore, imagine what it's going to be like when those trucks and trailers have to back out during spring break or during snowbird season and tie up traffic as they're trying to maneuver and stay in the parking lanes here. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Glenn. City manager, anything else? Okay. All right. City clerk?
Thank you all
This is your
very
time.
much. Yeah, thank you.
Oh, you're very welcome.
Yeah.
Thank you. Great job. Enjoy the day off.
Thanks.
And City Council, we start with Leslie Natero.
I have nothing to add.
Glenn Gunn? I know you heard me.
Glenn?
I'm good, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Frank Fanford?
Reviewing Bel Air Shore's minutes or audio of this past month, they received our letter. It wasn't received too well by one commissioner, but the mayor seemed to thought it was a pretty generous offer. I think I'm going to put words that he didn't say, but they're looking into it a little bit more aggressively. They haven't shot it down. But the attorney, I don't believe, has all the facts with the FWC in that. I wrote to Patty, because I got a citizen ask me about the buoy changes in Bel Air Beach, which he says, you know, it was stated at the council that I'm against any boats coming into shore. I've never said I was against any boats coming into shore. I was never against any buoy changes in Bel Air Beach. I still am not against the buoy changes in Bel Air Beach, and I'll get into it in the next work session. But I think what we need to, and I would like to reach out to Mayor Schmidt and see if I can have a discussion with him. I don't know if we have an email address to him or not, and do some clarification on all this.
Frank, I listen to those meetings routinely as part of my due diligence for the suit, and I heard everything they said about the buoys, and because of the sunshine thing, I can't talk with you, so now I can talk with you about it. It was fairly well received. The person who doesn't receive it well doesn't receive anything well for us, so I kind of discount that. The one comment that I do remember hearing from their attorney, they said, maybe Bel Air Beach doesn't realize how generous an offer this was, because they were coming up with some estimates of like 100,000 plus to do this. And My first inkling was $100,000 to sink a few buoys. I mean, if the state has made it this complicated, wow, they're almost making a disincentive for safety. And that is just against everything we stand for as a city. It should be everything against that they stand for. I don't know if, like you said, she doesn't have the right information, or did we shoot ourselves in the foot? Because when I heard $100,000, I almost fell off my chair, going, wow, did we just offer them $100,000? Because that's a chunk of change. But I'm not saying no to it, but I just want to make sure we know what we're getting into, because they seem to think like, wow, thanks a lot. This is really a great offer.
We're only talking about 2 buoys.
Right, and I think she was talking about replacing them all.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
And to put in 2 buoys is probably gonna cost us, after we buy the buoys and what have you, somewhere around $3,000.
Well, that's a big difference. I can deal with it.
You know, now, there is gonna be some cost for them to rewrite their ordinance, because it'll have to be clear.
And I truly believe that Bel Air Shores put in a request right now for 2 permits with no wake zone and idle speed. That permit would pass right now.
No, it wouldn't.
Well, I'm telling you right now,
Not according to Fish and Wildlife.
well, according to Fish and Wildlife, if you go back a year ago, they asked repeatedly what's going to be on the buoys. And in the emails it changes with Kyle said, idle speed, no wake. 3 times they asked. So the other towns aren't being attacked, only us. We should have just remodified that permit back when I first brought it, and I think it would have got passed easily. But
You know, Frank, we've had Lynn Reeves go across, I say go across, across the street, but really it's down the road here. He's went to their meetings and spoke about undergrounding, stuff like that. You are clearly the most knowledgeable person that we have in this city on this buoys issue. I have absolutely personally no issue whatsoever with you going across, speaking with them, speaking at their meeting, because I sensed that they were open to it. And if you read some of the stuff that I've picked up in the discovery, they were not for it a little while ago. So I think there's been some breakthrough over here, and it is a safety issue. And if it's $3,000 and they say yes, I mean, we're going to vote on that real quickly, because that's a no-brainer. So
I've talked to some of their residents and asked council to bring them back. Some of their commissioners actually addressed it. I put on the record before that they would like to see them back. And they actually used a scenario to use the pennies for Pinellas, but it was already spent. But all that said is, I think it can be done easily if they get the correct information. And I'm not degrading their attorney or anything like that. I just think there should be a meeting.
I mean, and attorney to attorney, we've had some battles and stuff like that with litigation, but she did a very thorough explanation to that council. So she put some time in on it. Again, she may have some misinformation. I have no problem with you reaching out to the mayor. It's up to the other council members, but you certainly have my stamp of approval. Any other council members, how do we feel? Reach out to them, and if they want you to speak at the meeting. I mean, you're not representing the council, but you're getting the information to them, you help clarify it, and if you can move it forward, and there's one person there that's a little tougher sell than the other 4, but
Yeah, and he seemed to be wavering a little bit towards the end too.
Okay, we're okay with that? Go forward.
I think before you do that, Frank, at the work session, we need to clarify what our wording is going to be. And because we sent what we thought we had back up to the FWC, and they gave us another rendition, which Fred and I. So if they're amenable to it, we just need to be able to make sure.
This will be what their wording is going to be. We don't know what their city's going to, we know what we wanted, when we were.
Well, it's going to probably have to be the same thing, or something similar, unfortunately. Because
I can tell you, one of the deciding votes over there talks about how he brings his paddleboard out from his house.
Well,
I've seen him. So he doesn't.
That's not a restriction
I know.
in anything. The issue is, unfortunately, based on my last conversation with FWC, is we don't qualify to have a idle no wait zone. And unfortunately, because of all this back and forth, they're looking at us. And so we have to come up with whatever zone it is and then change our buoys, which,
Well, again, that's merit the discussion on another night, but,
yeah, we'll have that discussion at the work session if everybody's okay with putting that back.
The only reason I'm saying though, their meeting, we have our work session, I think, around the 15th. Usually their meetings around the 18th or something like that,
Yeah,
so.
we may have a better understanding once.
But he still will want to get on the agenda
Yeah.
for their meeting if he wants to speak at the meeting. And
When
if
you
he
go to
speaks,
their meeting and speak, they don't.
well, I would rather just see if I can get a coffee with the mayor.
I would like to know the direction, what it is that we are deciding upon before you have that conversation, so that we're on the same page. I don't want them to agree to something and then we have to bend to match them if we're all going to have to do the same thing.
I don't think we all have to be the same. I mean, we are two separate cities, so.
Well, Mayor, you do, because they don't qualify any more than we do to have like an idle no wait zone based on the statutes.
But they could, let me give you a scenario, they could have no, like, our first thing was no vessels at all, and we could have.
Oh, yeah.
Vessels, so that's what I was talking about, yeah, I mean, if they don't qualify, no matter what they do, they're not gonna qualify, they're not gonna qualify, neither did we. But they could say no, nothing, which I don't think they will, I think they're gonna go with what we have, they're gonna probably want manually propelled, paddle type things, but, so I don't think it matters because they'll get their own choice, really. We could have two separate things, we could.
Right, but what I'm saying is the idle no wait is
out.
It's pretty much dead. And in talking to Clearwater, they have a no swim zone up to somewhere along North Beach, but beyond that, there's no buoys, no nothing. You can do whatever you want.
That's pretty much private residence up there.
Indian Shores or Indian Rocks has no wait, but nobody's brought that to the FWC's attention. Indian Shores has no buoys. They opted to get rid of them. And Madeira has a swim area, swim only, no wait zone. So we're getting the information from the other cities.
So unfortunately, we got attention, but not the attention we wanted.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because we don't have a lock, we don't have a boat ramp, let's see, what else was there? Within 500 feet, we don't have a fuel station. All of that was brought up to us when we set back what we thought we were gonna do. Unfortunately, but.
But then we have a no vessel zone now and people still do it, so I mean, it's, we got four sheriff's boats in the whole county, so, you take your choice. I'm not telling anybody to break the law, but, people are gonna chance it, I would guess.
Yeah, you're not gonna prevent it.
The difference is you chance it, you hit somebody, you got massive liability, because now you're violating the rules, and then have fun, the person you hit will own your boat, so that'll be the end of that game. Frank, I'm okay with you going right now, but if we have to vote on this, let's make sure everybody's on the same page, but because they can do this different than us. The state's gonna ultimately tell them their limits, and their limits will be the same as ours, they're not gonna get votes, so I'm okay with it, Dave.
I would like to know exactly what he's going to say, and the reason why is because it looks to me like approaching the FWC backfired. I know it wasn't intentional, but it does worry me.
Well, I didn't approach the FWC, the city approached the FWC. When I brought this to the attention of the city, saying, hey, we got a safety issue here, and I got residents complaining. If we would have just gone to the FWC and said we need to amend the permit again because we removed too many buoys, this thing would have been, we've been done and over with. All right, but we looked at it trying to say, keep the buoys out. That's what this is. That's when the FWC got their hairs up.
Okay. Again, I I think Frank should get the call into the mayor, get on their agenda. We can certainly, make sure if we have talking points, give them to them on the 15th, that our voices are heard the way we want them to be heard. But I think he's got to start this ball rolling. Things move slower over there than they do here. They don't have the staff like we do. Getting Mayor Schmidt, he's lawsuit aside, he was a decent guy. I was able to reach out with him many times in the past. And
I talked to him once.
yeah,
He
he'll
seems
listen
like
to
a
you.
real nice guy.
He'll listen to you. I mean, he even tried with the shade ordinance to fix it, but his council shot him down, and then we got into this, so he tried. So, is he gonna talk to the mayor now, and then what are we doing? I'd like to get him going on the mayor at least, and then he comes back and.
Well, if it needs to be an agenda item, I would say add it. And we're going to have a work session right before that meeting, so let's just let's work on the game plan together, the message you're gonna deliver. And,
We're wasting 2 weeks, that's the only problem I have with that. I think let
I
him talk
think
with the
I have-
mayor, and then we.
You can speak to one council member, but it really, that's one council member, and they can't speak to anyone else. So you can talk to one, but until you address the entire council, you're not gaining any traction. And I know Bob also, and he'll listen to you, but under the current circumstances, doesn't give a whole lot back. He's very, very careful about his wording and what he says. I would just let him know that you want to put an agenda item on there and you'd like the opportunity to speak. And then let's kind of do a review of what it is that you're going over there to talk to, because I don't want it to appear that it's Frank Bankert. I would like this council to know what it is that you're going to.
Well, how about if I just do this? I'll just go over and talk to him as a citizen.
You don't need our permission for that. Just say you're representing yourself and you just get some information. I mean, I think he'll give you the idea of if it's something that will even float, no pun intended with the movies, but he'll know what his council's feelings are. And I think there's 4 people on that council that will go along. County Mayor Schmidt, you might have 4 people, you might have 1. The problem is that one person is a very influential council member there. So the extent that let's put it on our work session, and then Frank will come back to us maybe with some better insight, and then we can say, here's our city's position, and he can convey that. I'm good with that.
I'm good with that.
You're all good with that?
I'm good with that.
Yeah, and I plan to put the buoy ordinance, discussion of the buoy ordinance on the work session.
We have a lot on this coming work session, so I mean,
Well, you have,
we still have some leftovers.
We have 3 other things, the report, the buoy, trying to remember what the other.
We still have a letter that we're writing to Ballard Shore about parking lots, I believe.
Oh, the part, yeah, that's on there. Oh, here it is. The Attorney General's opinion that I brought up, the best practices for staff reporting. One brought up discussion of letter to Ballard Shore, and then I added the buoy ordinance. So that's what our right now is.
Frank, I'm still on you. Okay. Robinaki.
I'm good.
Okay. Dick Geddes.
No comment.
And I don't have any comment either. It's late. We've had a nice meeting. I enjoyed it. We got a lot done. Next meeting is November 15th. We have a city council work session at 6 p.m. for these items. Patty, what's the approximate deadline for getting anything on the agenda if anybody comes up with anything else? Let's see.
Wednesday, it'd be so probably Tuesday.
Yeah.
Now you're off on Friday, so.
Thursday and Friday.
Yeah,
And
so,
we want to get it out on Wednesday.
The next Tuesday,
Yeah.
basically. Okay.
Oh, Moby Mats will.
Moby Mats, yes, if we can, maybe if we could just download a picture of that for everybody.
It's almost like your beach mat, except it's more sturdy.
Is it like a foam or something, or?
No, it's a actual, like a, it's a roll-out mat. It rolls up and you just roll it out. it adds sections to it. It's been around many, many years.
My only concern, and maybe this is something to look at beforehand, we have a limited access on Morgan because of the COs and the dunes and stuff like that. So how does, we don't want everybody walking on it. It's supposed to be for, you know, people with disabilities and stuff. So how do we work that into the existing
Well, that's a
system?
wide opening there.
Wide enough? Okay.
Because that's where we go in for the beach renourishment. So the opening's wide. I think they're, if I remember right, they're like 3 or 4 foot wide. Probably 4 because of wheelchair.
2 different sizes on the website.
Is that what it
My
says?
website. I don't know what they are, but.
But I'll get you some pictures
Yeah.
and stuff.
Just, obviously I don't want to disturb a dune or COs or anything
Well,
like
no,
that.
it would have to go where the concrete ends.
And, right, okay.
And go out from there.
It might work, and the price is right, so, great. All right, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Second? All in favor? Aye. Have a good night. We're adjourned.